Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning for some of you around the world, and welcome to the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. We're getting set for over 6 hours of broadcasting here today on GlacierTV as we bring you exclusive live coverage of all of the 4 races here today. We start with the Group BC finals, which is taking place first of all at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace, better known as Interlagos, as the 4 GTs get set to do battle for 50 minutes, and it's very, very cold here today at Interlagos. Then a little bit later on, we'll head over to the Tricky Triangle, Pocono, in the Gen 6 NASCARs as they get set to do battle for 70 grueling laps. Will Vincent, along with Marius Gollenbeck, John Monroe and Chris Cohen, as we are currently looking at qualifying. Don't forget, we have an exclusive second stream here today, powered by our friends over at LSR-TV, where you can use Twitter interactions to control your destiny. I'll come to you first, Marius. World Cup is always one of the most exciting events in the iRacing calendar. This year they take it in up an extra step with this Group BC race, and really it demonstrates a need for a team to have drivers, depth of field, and consistently good drivers, from the WCS drivers all the way down to those who are just making their iRacing journey.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing basically the drivers who are low in I-rating, as you'd consider. They wouldn't be driving in high-ranked series like the WCS World Championship Series. But here in the World Cup, it all comes together, being one club and just getting every one of that club together and forming as strong a grid as possible. And we're seeing people here with just under 2,000 I-rating, which wouldn't really anyone would pay attention to them in WCS or any other series, but here it really comes being down as being one grid, one split to your club, and just doing it all together literally. And we're currently seeing Alexander Voss for the DH club in pole position, of course making me particularly happy. But 6 drivers for each club here, as well as in the oval race, so a lot of cars on track actually. With 5 clubs we've got 30 cars each, and you said it already, it doesn't look particularly bright here. A little bit of clouds in the sky of Brazil here, 24 degrees Celsius only, so that's going to be a tricky condition for them. But yeah, at least for the engine, that's a good bit of power here. But we're looking for 2 very exciting races here today.
Indeed, and the first of our qualifying times is coming up on the screen. We talked about a number 13 car representing Club Diat in second position. Right now it is the 102 car representing Club Diat as well, of Danny Grieser. In third place it is the number 89 car representing Club Finland of Mika Nitiamaki. And then in fourth place, again representing Club Diat, is a Matthias Klock. Now, Chris, I'll come to you now. And this race is going to be a race of attrition in some ways, but it's also really going to set the momentum for each of the 5 clubs here. Have a good race, you've got yourself some early points. Have a bad race, your entire team is on the back foot for the next 3 events.
Yeah, and it's interesting they've chosen to put the B and C final first, sort of building up to the A final later on. But it's a 50-minute race, it's a long race, so these guys don't need to go out of the blocks hell for leather. They can take their time, and they can build up, hopefully, to a great climax at the end of the race.
And so the 5 clubs represented, for those of you who haven't been paying much attention, of course, we have last year's champions, Club Finland. We have 3-time World Cup champions, Club Diat. We have Club UK and Ireland, Club Brazil, and Club Iberia. And in fact, Chris, Club Iberia, a bit of a surprise to many. Let's not forget, last year, they were one of the worst clubs in the final round of qualifications. This year, they managed to get themselves that 5th place away, in which was a great battle between themselves, the Australia-New Zealand club, and also Club Florida as well, who are right there in the mix.
Yeah, I think at the top, no real surprises there. We expected DH, this Germany, Austria, Switzerland to do very well, and Finland as well, and possibly the UK guys as well to do very well. But yeah, Iberia, top going from them. They've really come up through the ranks, and we'll have to see how that plays out, because they are the underdogs as far as the team competition goes, and they might just be able to prove themselves today.
And let's have a look at this racetrack as well. And I'll talk to you here, John. This track is one of the most historic tracks in all of motorsports. Now, Interlagos, it's not the same track that was used back in the 60s and 70s, but still a fascinating racetrack and a lot of undulation changes. And you really have got to find a balance between the very fast speed section at the start and the end of the lap and that tight, twisty section in the middle.
Yeah, it's an incredibly versatile circuit, as we all know, and it's absolutely steeped in motor racing history, of course, with Interlagos being the home of drivers such as Ayrton Senna, Rubens Barrichello, and the like. So it's always creates exciting racing, does this circuit. And as you say, it's so versatile. You have the long straights, like especially at the start of the lap, and also, well, basically the whole last section of the lap heading towards the start line and going into turn 1. Yeah, you need to carry a lot of speed, so as little downforce as possible. But for the rest of the circuit, there's a good mixture of slow speed and high speed corners. So it really is about getting the balance right on these heavy Ford GTs.
And having a look through the field, currently you've had 26 drivers set themselves a qualifying time. And it's that nervous moment right now, Marius, because as I said already, it's all about momentum. And this track down into the center rest can be very, very scary.
Yeah, not only there, we've got a couple of points on this track which are somewhat unique to other tracks, of course this being a Formula 1 driven track. For example, the pit entry, we've talked about that before the broadcast started. It's going to come down to exactly getting your pit stop right, because you're entering the pits at basically full speed. You're going along the main straight and you're basically just weaving to the left, going into the pits, then going straight again, and the pits only start from a couple of 100 meters from there. So you're already in the pits, you've got a huge wall to your right, and you need to get the braking exactly right, because you're coming along at, what, 250 kilometers an hour. If you brake just minimally too early, you're already giving away literally seconds at the pit entry. Okay, first point done, you're in the pits. Obviously, you need to get your pit stall right. You don't need to overshoot your pit stall. That's just going to cost you a lot. But if you leave the pits then, you're doing a 90 degrees left turn, you're going right again, and you're going into a long left-hander, which is just barely flat out if you get it 100% right. And, well, no surprise, you've got grass on the right and the wall, you've got grass on the left and the wall, so any mistake at the pit exit is already going to cost you the race. And we've known different tracks since the last couple of years, since the last couple of World Cups. Pit stops haven't really been an issue here. You said it, the track itself got tricky points, but it will really come down to the pit stops making an absolute show here.
I tell you what, I'm going to put my money on it right now. Over the course of today, pit stops is going to be the difference maker, period. Both here and also at Pocono, which has got one of the most unique pit exits in all of over racing. 5 minutes left to go in qualifying. As it stands right now, it is still a 13 DH car of Rob leading the way. Greaser in second. Matthias Clark has managed to get himself up into third. So right now it's DH 1, 2, 3. The 89 car, Mikko, is in the fourth position for Club Finland. And then Fabio Sakatita in the fifth spot for Club Brazil. Then the first Club UK&I driver is Luke Ridgway in the sixth position. Mika Hortumaki is in the seventh position for Club Finland. Sandro Nocera is in eighth for Club Brazil. Ninth is the number 14 car representing Club UK&I. And then in 10th position, the number 1 car of Leo Solomon, who is representing Club Finland. Here's the interesting thing, Chris. No Iberian drivers in the top 10.
No, I'm just looking at that wheel myself, and Gabriel Perez seems to be the highest placed Iberia driver at the moment in 18th place. So a little bit of ground for them to make up. Like you said, still 5 minutes to go in qualifying. Most of them will probably have finished their 4 allocated laps by now. But it's going to be an uphill battle for them if they're all starting in the bottom half of the grid.
The qualifying being separated by just over 2 seconds, at least that goes for the top 20 here, but you guys said it, top 10, no Iberian driver, as Sandro Nocera just moves himself up into third position overall, 1 minute 32.8, and we've been talking about this. We've got 4 races today, 2 road and 2 oval, of course 2 being the lower split ones and 2 being the high split ones, which we'll show you tonight, but it will be very interesting to see what times these guys will be able to do. 2, as currently Alexander Voss with the 1:32.3 and Danny Juser with the 1:32.4 have both done really good lap times, and we've only seen Martin Krönke break into the 1:31s if I remember correctly. So these guys would even be ready for the top split tonight. However, they're going to attend here, making it very dominating look at the moment for the DH Club, being almost half a second off the third position Brazilian Sandro Nocera. Clock being moved down to 4, and Mikko Nietimäki still in 5th position. The last one with a 1:32 here. However, we've known this since a couple of broadcasts already. Very close battle in the mid-range. So if you're in that 1:33, 1:34 range here, along place 15, exactly where most of the Iberians are in the at the moment, you're just gonna have a hard time getting up there. I mean, basically a single mistake will already cost you a couple of tenths here, and all you need is a couple of hundred to already gain a couple of positions. So you really have to try hard. We've got about 2 minutes left on the clock in qualifying, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see one or the other change here, especially considering Iberia being so low in the standings at the moment.
And I tell you what, you made a point there, Chris, about the Iberian drivers having an uphill battle. Actually, the fact that they have actually got to start by going up the hill, because of the way this unique grid is. The cars towards the front of the grid are pretty much going downhill. The cars at the rear of the grid have to go uphill. So, in some ways, actually completely right. They will be starting an uphill battle in this race. However, you have got to think, John, that some of these clubs are going to have different strategies. Of course, it does look as though the Germans want to lead from the front, and they might have the DH drivers want to lead from the front, putting all of their effort into qualifying. But maybe some of the other clubs, some of the K&I people you see towards the rear of the field, their aim is to just finish the race. And of course, attrition is likely to be high in this event.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's all about, to be honest, the qualifying results, they show one thing, but it's going to be all about race pace in the end. And there could be a big variation between the driver's order in the qualifying and the race. You could see, as you said, the DH drivers maybe putting a lot of effort into the qualifying and trying to drive away at the start of the race, but that could affect tyre wear later on in the race if they have a more a faster setup which doesn't really hold the car for as long. So you could see maybe some of the Brazilian guys or the Finnish right up there. But yeah, it certainly is variable. It's going to be different for each event, of course. Different drivers and different clubs have different strengths, so we're going to see a mixture up at the front, but I'm sure each club will have their say in the end, and it will be close. Even though the DH guys are looking quick at the moment, this is just one race of 4 and it is only qualifying, so there's definitely a long way to go and a lot more excitement to come.
Pretty much everyone has qualified now, and we are just going to run the clock off. However, what this does do is it gives us the opportunity to run through your starting grid for the first of today's races here, exclusively live on GlacierTV. Lining up on pole position with a qualifying time of 1:32.389 is Alexander Vob in the number 13 Club DH machine. He's got a club mate lining up alongside him in the 102 car. That is Danny Glazer. Third place, Sandro Nocera in the number 30 car. In fourth is Matthias Klock in the number 55 car. Mikko in the number 89 machine for Club Finland runs in the 5th position. Fabio Sakita for Club Brazil in 6th. Luke Ridgway in 7th for Club UK&I. In 8th is Mika Hotomaki in the number 27 Club Finland car. Adam Shalinsky in the number 14 Club UK&I machine starts in 9th position. And then Leo Solomon in the number 1 Club Brazil car starts in the 10th position. Full qualifying times coming up on your screen momentarily. Don't forget, you can get involved on Twitter all weekend long. Use the hashtag iRacing World Cup and then use the hashtag for your respective clubs. We'll run through that as the broadcast progresses. Marius, who's going to win?
I can't tell. I mean, Alexander Voss and Danny Juser have both been equally fast in qualifying, but Sandro Nocera not far behind them. It really is anybody's race here.
And we are waiting right now. The cars are lined up on the grid. Track temperature right now is 75 degrees Fahrenheit. We have a 5 mile an hour southwesterly wind. That will really play into this race. And race humidity, well, that is 55%. Your rules of racing for today. We're going to go racing for 50 minutes as the lights are out. And here we go. Cars all storming down into turn number 1 for the first time. Looks like we had a good start from the top couple of drivers as they all come down turn 1. Contact right at the front of the field.
Voss is off.
We have a car off the racetrack and a big big crash, and this is going to be a big game changer. We've also got cars struggling down at the center rest, but I tell you what, Chris, it all went wrong down in turn number 1.
Yeah, well, it'll be really interesting to see. Oh, we got another one of the UK&I cars that's gone. Oh, well, he gets it back in place down the straight. He's on the grass. He's cut. Oh, he almost took out his teammate there. That could be game over for one of the UK&Is. Not sure which driver that was, but it'd be interesting to see because Voss got a good start and then it all went wrong into the center S's.
And it was, of course, your pole position driver, Alexander Vob, who was in that incident down into turn number 1. And it was contact there with Sandro Nocera, who had a great start in that number 30 car. And he was able to get himself alongside in the Club Brazil car and then contact Marius between those two drivers down into the center S. Bob's race really didn't start the way he wanted to as he is out.
Yeah, I've just been looking through that situation a couple of times. It's really hard to tell who's at fault there, but Sandro, of course, with a good start here, lining himself up next to Alexander, but it's just so hard to overtake on the inside there, especially as Alexander's obviously not giving him any room, and yeah, I can't really tell why Sandro's been risking that. I mean, we've got 50 minutes on the clock, and it's already race over for Alexander, and just as easily as that, it could have been over for Sandro. So it's a bit silly considering that they want to race for points here, not for the win, but apparently Sandro is thinking otherwise, as he's currently leading the field in front of Danny Giusa and Matthias Klock.
And to give you an update on people who are out of the race, we'll do that in just a moment as timing and scoring updates. But it is that 30 car right now who's leading the way for Club Brazil. In second position is Danny Giusa, who is representing Club Diat. Third place, Matthias Klock, also representing Club Diat. Fourth place, you have Miko in the number 89 car, and then in fifth is Sakita. As wide there goes Matthias Klock, and here comes Miko. He's going to look down to the outside. This is a very difficult place to try and make the move. On the outside, you come down into turn number 5. He's not going to do it. Falls back into line, but you've got to ask, John, perhaps nerves really coming into play when you're representing your country, especially in a big race like this.
Yeah, and of course it's not just yourself you're representing, as you say. It is the entire country rests on your shoulders, especially qualifying on pole position might not even be an advantage due to the added pressure, and it showed there with Alexander, and he'll be absolutely gutted, and he has actually retired from the race. It's a real shame for him, but a great battle going on for third, as we were seeing, with Matthias Klock holding on from Mikko Niittymaki at the moment. But that looks like a great battle developing already, only a couple of tenths between them. And Mikko looked pretty racy earlier on in this lap. It looked like he was going to make a move, but he's slotted back in behind for the moment as they're about to approach the end of lap 2.
And we'll give you confirmation of who is out of the race. It is Alexander Vob in the 13 car. You also have Kiko Dominguez representing Club Iberia, and also Diego Batista representing Club Brazil out of the race. I talked at the start of this broadcast, Chris, you have to make sure your drivers come home. And a couple of the UK&I drivers started from pit road. I believe Dan Blake did. And he did that just because he wanted to not be involved in any of the carnage at the start. We did see that could have been a lot worse there down into the center rest. There was some good heads-up driving.
Yeah, and I've got to say, there's no point rushing in a 50-minute race. You say that all the time, but the adrenaline's running high. You're representing your country. You want to do well. You want to get out of the blocks as quickly as possible. But I think, a little bit more patience might have paid off. And for someone like Dan Blake starting from the pits, he's made up 3 positions in this race just because 3 people have already retired.
Matthias Klock losing his 3rd position, as you see it on the screen, currently being overtaken by Mikko Niittymaki after being side by side in turn 1 and 3. Back on the leader, however, we see already quite a big gap between position 2, Danny Giusa, and Matthias Klock, respectively. Mikko Niittymaki right now in 3rd. Of course, giving the consideration that fights particularly costs a lot of time, but taking a look at the leader here, Sandro Nocera giving a whole lot of push here at the moment. 33.303 for him last lap. Danny Giusa just a fraction off him, 0.350. But these guys are pretty much unmatched if you skip through the field. 1 second faster than anybody else on this track right now. And it really looks like Danny Giusa is not giving up here. Last lap this time by 0.0 for Nocera, 0.1 for Giusa, and behind them a 0.3 for Niittymaki, and that's with the overtake against Klock. So he might not be out of consideration, being 3.5 seconds behind them just now. However, 50 minutes race, there's nothing decided right here.
Indeed, as the car comes out of pit road, score 1 lap down. That is the number 79 Club Iberia car, just getting out the way of all of the leaders. To run through your top 10 then, it is Nocera from Greaser, from Nitimaki, from Clock, from Sakita, from Ridgeway, from Hitumaki, from Perez, from Solomon, and then running at your top 10 is Colibal. And to give you an update, actually, Perez has had a good start in that Club Iberia car, right there in the thick of the action, as there's cars all over the place. In fact, he almost came together with one of his club mates as he put a lap on him. He's looking now down to the inside and will complete that pass on Mika Hutamaki. So, that Iberia driver really is charging through the field right now, John.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was just following him for the last lap, and he's been making moves left, right and centre, and that was a lovely move down the inside of Hatumaki. He seemed to force him out wide, maybe throw him a dummy heading into the turn. Hatumaki had to brake late to defend the position, but it was too late, runs wide, and a great driving from Gabriel Perez sees him move up to, I believe, 7th position now, and he will chase down Luke Ridgeway, who's in 6th. But it's not the DH domination so far that we might have expected. They're running 2nd and 3rd, but it's not them leading at the moment, it's the Brazilian car of Sandro Nocera.
And of course, Nocera was that car who had a brilliant start in that number 30 car after qualifying this race in the 3rd position. It did look as though that Vob had a little bit of a sluggish start, and then of course there's that contact down in turn number 1. Vob out the race, Nocera is leading right now. Guiza, like last time by, however, he was a lot faster than Nocera. A 1 minute 33.470 for Nocera, a 1 minute 32.857 for Guiza. So that car is coming, and he's coming in a big hurry right now, Marius.
Yeah, with Danny Juicer making a mistake in the 3rd turn, a slight mistake, just that is enough already to bring Mikko Nitimaki down to about 2 seconds right now. So he's really chasing those two down, and taking a look at the lap times, of course. Yeah, the top 4 basically on their own, even with Nocera on a 33.4 as well as Matthias Klock on a 33.2. They are just about a second faster than the rest in the field at the moment. Fabio Sekita 34, Luke Ridgeway 35. So I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a top 3 battle, let's say. But yeah, at least at the moment it looks like Mikko Nitimaki is really looking to make some ground here. He started from only the 5th position in the grid, but it already shows he's really looking for a top 3 finish, giving his club Finland a good bit of points. As we take a look down, Mika Hautamäki place 8. That's the second guy for Cup Finland at the moment. So he's really looking to get the big chunk of points out of this.
I think he is, and I tell you what, you have got to consider how it's going to be for these drivers. You have got a couple of people on pit road. Dominguez is on pit road. Schwinski is on pit road as well. So one of the UK and I drivers suffering early on as Bermudez is bringing his car back out onto the racetrack. Of course, he is representing Club Iberia and is scored towards the rear of the field. We've got a battle between Giza and Nikomati, and Nico was able to get that position back there down into turn number 3, and he's in fact moved himself up into the 2nd position on the racetrack. And I have to say, that 89 car really is driving well right now, John.
Yeah, and I was just watching him also for that lap. He was closing in throughout the entire lap. Obviously Danny made a mistake the lap before, and maybe it cost him a little bit, cooled down his tyres. I say it was definitely a run wide, but oh, Nikomati went very sideways there into the right-hander in the 2nd sector. But yeah, Danny seemed to be struggling a little bit, and that mistake obviously cost him. Nikomati has seen the red mist, and he's seen, I can get this guy, I'm going to push just as hard as I can on this lap to close him in. Got in the slipstream heading out of the Senna S's, and he moved to the left-hand side. Guiza could do nothing about it, and he'd got the move done before they even reached the turn. And that means that Nitomaki for the Finnish club is up into the 2nd position, and he looks like he's pulling away slightly from Danny Guiza.
Indeed it is, and of course this is a race that's going to be decided over the 50 minutes. You've got that pit stop you have to bear in mind as well. Some drivers are going to be running slightly different fuel levels, and of course you can't forget as well, Chris, that some people might have been bold when it comes to the downforce settings that they're going to use, and we have seen some cars, like that number 89 car, just try and be a little bit more trimmed out, make some better on the straightaways. However, then on that infield section, they've got to be a lot more careful. We did see that at turn number 8. Mikko was struggling just a little bit there as he tried to slow that car down.
He seems to have it in check at the moment, but you're absolutely right. These are full GT cars with all the different setup options that come with that. So the straight, the start-finish straight is absolutely huge. So if you run a low downforce, you can get a lot of speed down that straight. You can get a big advantage over people, but you do sacrifice that on the infield. And I'll be interested to see if you're right about Nitimaki, if he can keep it in check in the infield section, whether he can pull out a lead from Gusa down the straights.
I'm intrigued about that one, Marius. And again, it all comes down to that balance between the race cars that we talked about earlier on.
Yeah, we're just seeing a lot of twitchy handling here. I'm pretty confused here. Nocera just had a half spin in turn 3, and then Danny Juza just had a big sideways moment in the middle sector. So these guys apparently really struggling with the grip on this track right now. 23 degrees Celsius not being particularly high, so might have a little bit of grip issues here. However, you said it, we're seeing Nitimaki and Juza chasing down Nocera, and I'm not exactly so sure if Nocera is so comfortable with this lead position at the moment. Being in the lead for the latter part of the race, of course, being a great situation, but yeah, having to lead it right away from the start might be a little bit of an issue, as he brings Nitimaki down to just a 1 second gap, in fact 1.069 seconds between the leader and the second placed driver. Danny Juza in third, 2.3 down, Matthias Klock in fourth, 4.2 seconds down. So I'm not exactly sure if Nitimaki is looking for an instant fight here, but he's definitely looking to get the first position here. It's just a question of when.
Indeed, and I think that's going to be the case when. And I'm wondering as well, perhaps Nocera might have had a tiny bit of damage in that contact at the start of the race. Now that will really aggravate over the course of these 50 minutes. Let's not forget, we are only about 11-12 minutes into this race so far, so there's so much racing left to go. But you do see that Nocera is struggling on that infield section, but we have not seen him be much quicker in a straight line. This is probably going to be the best opportunity to find out, as you see a car just moving out of the way to allow the leaders to go by. That was Alex Ruiz there in the number 41 car, so Iberia struggling once again with a car going down a lap. But this is the battle for the race lead, and this is going to be a very good indication the next 30 seconds to see what these two drivers have. And Nitimaki gets a very good run actually there out of Yonkao, runs a little bit wide. However, as they come up the hill, the question is going to be, will he be able to stop that car down to the inside? You do have to lift a little bit in some conditions. Already Nocera is going on the defensive. If that 89 car is going to want to get this race lead away, he's going to have to do it the hard way. Will he look to the outside here, or will he consolidate this position down into turn 3? He's going to brake a little bit earlier. This will be give him the opportunity to perhaps get a run out of the curve of the soul. Turn number 3 as they come through that right now. But it does look as though Nocera is able to get a good momentum through the center S. So perhaps Nitimaki is going to have to wait another lap. Good racing between these two drivers though, John.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the lap times, and obviously Sandro Nocera had a bit of a mistake on the lap before, but he was 1.5 seconds slower than Nitimaki, and even on that last lap he was a full 9/10 of a second slower. So clearly Nitimaki has got the bit between his teeth right now. He looks to the outside and he's going to dummy to the outside, jump to the inside, but didn't manage to make it happen there. He just needs to bide his time, of course. We have a long way to go in this race, and Nocera does seem to be struggling. I do think that Nitimaki will be able to force a mistake out of him, looking at the way that Sandro is sliding the car about just now. But yeah, definitely Nitimaki doing his club and country very proud at the moment.
And of course, you have got to think big picture here as well, Chris, because you know, if Nocera spins, he could potentially lose 2 or 3 positions. If he just allows Nitimaki to go past, then he's only going to lose 1 position. And arguably, in this thing, you've got to think about the big picture. Yes, of course, you get most points for winning, but you don't want to make a mistake and cost you potentially a ton of points event.
Well, Nitimaki has got the pace, so it's just a matter of time for me if he can keep it mistake-free before he takes that lead. So you're right, you know, second place is still a good achievement for Nocera, but he won't be wanting to give that up. There's nothing like leading one of these races, especially at this sort of level. The more they battle, though, the more Juice is going to be able to catch them up, and this might well be a 3-car fight before you know it.
You say, Chris, and that brings me to an interesting thought here. Danny Juza being handed down to 3rd position, it might not even be that bad of a choice, because this being a fight between 3 different nations, it's Brazil against Finland against DH, or different clubs maybe, rather, it might not be that bad of a choice, because he's already saving the points for 3rd. he's got a teammate in 4th, and as soon as any issue happens ahead of him, he's basically just gonna be granted positions right away. And that brings me to another point. There might just be a slight bit of damage to the car of Sandro Nocera. We remember at the start he's had a crash with Alexander Voss, took Voss out of the race, basically with destroyed car, the suspension completely bent, him being slightly unharmed, so we're not exactly sure if he's suffered bad damage. Well, he's certainly not suffered too bad damage because he's still running good lap times, but he might have suffered a little bit as we take the view onto position number 10, where we've got a big fight growing. Martin Kolibal being handed down to 11 as Iro Solman is still holding that 10th position, so a lot of mid-pack battle going on. David Grunhill right behind him. UK and I trying to get the position from Kolibal, not this time, but yeah, a lot of people struggling here. A lot of guys being sideways in the middle sector, just being handed down the grid so quickly.
And of course, that does come down to the cool conditions we have. Overcast as well, so very difficult to get heat into the tyres. And in fact, for Grunhill, he started this lap in 11th. I think he's going to come out of it in 13th position. Great battles going on in your mid-pack. And in 10th position, of course, right now, there's been 9th position even. Someone's going to move himself up into the 9th position. Then it is going to be Marco Sedi Fritas in the 10th spot. Then it's going to be into...
Oh, we've got a spin! We've got a spin. Mikko Niittymaki spins when he's trying to overtake Sandro Nocera. He's down to 4th position, and even Fabio Sikita might get him now. Oh my god, he just spun trying to overtake Nocera into turn 3. Being on the outside, he loses the rear on turn in, spins over the inside curb. And that's exactly what Gius has been hoping for. And Sandro Nocera is now way off into the distance.
Yeah, we'll get ourselves a replay of that up on your screens momentarily. This was down into the Becco de Pato, the duck bill corner. And on the outside line, Mikko, I'm not sure, he might have just touched the white line there. Under braking, very weird what happened to him. His car just speared to the left and he had nowhere to go. He didn't hit anything, but in fact, in some ways reminiscent to what happened on the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series with Ben Cornett, and almost happened to one of his teammates as well. In fact, we almost saw that with Gregor Hutu earlier on in the race. But Niittymaki now will get confirmation as he comes past the stripe, but he's now scored in the 4th position in this race, and Sakita wasn't quite close enough to make the advantage. But now it is all changed. It is now Brazil from Club Diach, from Club Diach, from Club Finland. Then in the 5th position, you have your second Brazil driver, UKI in 6th. In 7th place, you have your first Club Iberia driver. Then in 8th, you have another one of the Finnish drivers. 9th in the number 1 car, of course, is the Club Brazil driver. And then Marcos Fritias in Club Brazil, moving himself into the top 10 as well. You have to say, right now, it is advantage to Club Brazil, Chris.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well out there on the circuit, and what with Niittymaki making that spin, no damage to the car, but damage to his confidence, and that's key in such a long race, because his momentum has now been broken, and he needs to get on with the task of settling back into that rhythm that he'd built up over that many laps, and see if he can do something about the 2 German drivers in front of him. They're fairly well spread out on the track now. We've got 2 or 3 second intervals between most of the drivers in the top 6, but we've got to watch out for Gabriel Perez as well, because he's run away with it.
Oh, this is huge. The number 89 car, and he's losing a lot more positions this time. This time, he's running on a curve. I believe this is down into turn number 10. Just caught the banking part, really, of that corner. Spins the car around, loses an absolute ton of positions. Now he's down into P8 on the racetrack. So Niittymaki, it's always that thing. After that first spin, you talked about the confidence there, Chris. And then all of a sudden, he does another one within the space of 2 laps.
That's the thing. If you don't spin at all, you've got the confidence. As soon as you spin once, you know that you can spin again, and that's always a threat, and it's come back to bite Mikko. It's a real shame for him running second down to 8th now, and he's just got to get it back in shape, and we've got one of the DH cars in the pits in the background, actually, but he's got to get it back in shape and see what he can do about his 8th place now.
Of course, one of the things that we have got to talk about as well, Marius, all of these drivers have to make a pit stop, and we are getting closer to half race distance. And there are some big questions here. These cars are normally used to doing 50-minute stints. However, they do fall off a little bit at the end. Of course, it's a lot longer to take tyres on pit road compared to not taking tyres. So a lot of strategy is going to happen in the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, and pretty interesting. We've got this battle on the cameras right now. This is the battle for position 9. Marco de Freitas in the lead in that battle, followed by Iro Solman and David Grunnell just being side by side up the hill here. Tom Young also in the pack. Interesting bit there, Will. Martin Kolibal has been right in that pack just now, the DH driver, going into the pits, however, and that is relatively early because we've not even reached half time of the race. So it could be too early for him strategy-wise. However, being in that pack, not being able to go quicker, maybe being pushed into a mistake, is maybe the right choice to just pit early, get out on the clean track, just trying to put in your regular amount of laps without any cars around you. That could be exactly the right position. But taking a look at Kolibal, he's just finished his pit stop, getting out of the pits behind Dan Blake and Kari Alasami in place 20. And he's right back in traffic, so not that big of a deal for him, at least this time, as he should be able to get by quickly, but not as big as an advantage because he's not getting out free. This, however, will be a factor for these guys in the pack. Who pits first, who pits last, and who's going to take an advantage out of it.
Indeed, and that pit stop battle, we see it so often in all forms of racing. Strategy often depends what happens on the racetrack. We have a car off track. That is Bartholin, who's running down towards the rear of the field, so 26th place, and he is not having the day he wants to be. But that back in the mid-battle, Marco Fritas has been able to pull out a bit of an advantage over Iro Solman for the time being, but Grunhill's been able to get himself back into P11. Then in P12, Tom Young in that number 5 car. Great battle, and this is one of these things, John. If you pit in, clean air, get a good pit stop, hit your marks, come out and don't have any issues, you can leapfrog almost this entire pack.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to a matter of seconds and milliseconds, to be honest. And it's all about, it will be interesting to see which of these drivers have actually practiced their pit lane entry and exits, because it's going to be absolutely vital in the finishing result in this race. And if it comes down to a few points, the overall standings could always come down to a few points, and then you could be looking at the difference between first and second and taking home the trophy. So there's a lot of interesting things happening at the moment. Another interesting thing I've actually noticed, the battle between Luke Ridgway in 5th for Club UK in Ireland and Gabriel Perez in 6th position for Iberia, and those are the 2 highest drivers from their respective clubs. We also have Mika Hatumaki in 7th, meaning that we have the top 7 drivers all within 5 different clubs. So that's great to see every single club having a driver right up there in the standings, and it's good to see the mixture. It's not just one club dominating.
Grunhill's on pit road.
Maybe didn't expect as much.
Grunhill's on pit road, and you saw him there pitting from 11th position. Behind him, Moredo did have a big moment, almost lost that car there down in turn number 11, but Grunhill on pit road. Let's see whether he takes tyres. It doesn't look as though he is going to take any fresh rubber here, so it'll just be fuel for that 02 car as he will be back out onto the racetrack. It is a slightly long stop for him, though. Of course, these GTs, not like Formula 1 cars where they just take about 5 seconds. I'm just seeing whether he had anything coming in, but he is back out onto the racetrack. And you have to brake a little bit there. Now you get back up to full pace. And this is very difficult, the grass. Ryan's talked about it already. In fact, Grunhill does just touch that grass with his left wheel. So you've got to be very careful as you try and get the power down. And now he's back onto the racetrack. But also, we have a car who's just crashed out of the race, John.
Well, he's not actually crashed out of the race, sorry, Will, but he is definitely in a lot of trouble. Fabio Sakita from position 4 has just ploughed off into the barrier. He seemed to get a bit of a twitch on, heading into the right-hander at the top of the hill, and went straight head-on into the barrier, and he's going to have major damage, which is going to have a big effect on his race and a big effect on his club.
Yeah, his left rear is very out of place. Then is that thing as well. You think about pit stops, you've got to think about bringing that car onto pit road, all the fuel calculations, all the other things going on in your ears as Luke Ridgway's on pit road right now. So one of the other top 10 UK and I drivers is onto pit road early. So different strategies for UK and I, but that really is going to hurt that Club Brazil team because they did have consistency in numbers in that top 10, Marius.
Yeah, and we've got another spin on track. Oliver Botor, in fact, being handed down from 14 to place 16. The DH driver now looking to get his pit stop done, obviously. Yes, he's coming down. No, he's not coming down pit road. Bit of a surprise there. Actually thinking he might be able to do a tire change here. However, 2 positions lost for him. Yeah, well, we've actually got a lot of spins going on here. A bit more than I thought, but it really seems like this weather is making these guys struggle.
Indeed, yes, and it all comes down to having to heat those tyres up. It's a very difficult principle. These tyres, they operate in a very narrow window. Too cold, then it's going to make it a lot easier to spin. Too hot, you're just scrubbing those tyres and losing the grip all over the place. But, of course, we still got ourselves about half of this race to go. Nocera still leads. The gap is between Nocera and Grieza. It is going up a little bit right now, actually. That last lap, Nocera was 2 tenths of a second faster than Grieza. As they come past the stripe, let's have a look. That last time by Grieza was able to get 2 tenths of a second back. Matthias clocked in that 3rd position, still 6 seconds off your race lead. Then Gabriel Perez in 4th in that 77 car, 17 seconds off the race lead. And then in 5th is Mika Hutamaki in the 5th position right now. Don't forget, you can keep in contact with us on Twitter all race long and take charge of our exclusive second feed. What you need to do is use the hashtag iRacing World Cup and then use the hashtag for your individual drivers. So for Club Brazil, it will be hashtag iRacing Brazil. For Club Diach, hashtag iRacing Diach. For Finland, hashtag iRacing Finland. Iberia, hashtag iRacing Iberia. And for UK and I, hashtag UKI. And I tell you what, Nocera, after that kind of difficult early stint of that race, Chris, he's kind of come back into his own, and he's just got himself settled down into a rhythm now. He's not got anyone chasing him down per se, and he's just been able to turn out some very consistent laps.
That's it. He's built up this rhythm. He's going very well with a 3-second gap over Juicer behind him. He's not showing any sign of slowing down at all. We know the tyres will wear off, but most drivers probably won't take tyres for a pit stop unless they have any particular reason to do so. The pit stops could shake this up. I mean, he comes in, gets a slightly slow stop, then Juice is right on his tail again, and then he's got something to worry about. But if he keeps it all in check, he could well wrap this up. I know we're only halfway through, but he's on good form so far.
Indeed, and we have got 23 minutes left on the play clock, and we have got a car just coming out of pit road ahead of your race leader. That is Andrew Sleatley representing Club UK and Ireland. But big battle for P4, which is starting to hot up right now. And that is between Gabriel Perez in number 77 car and that recovering number 89 car, Nitimaki. So I tell you what, if I was Perez, I'd actually just let him by, because that 89 car has made a number of mistakes in this race already, Marius. And there is a chance he might make another.
Yeah, well, he's not exactly going to repeat his mistakes, but you said it, he might just make another one because he's trying to get by too quickly. So Perez for Club Iberia looking to defend here rather heavily, not giving Nitimaki the room he might want. But this is good to see. I mean, Iberia not being particularly in the top 10 in qualifying, and Perez is currently in 4th. And, well, he's looking to keep the points for 4th and not waving Nitimaki by so quickly. And yeah, well, this is just going to be such a difficult thing for him right now. He's got the Finland teammate Mika Hautamäki behind him in 6th, but he knows he can just do so much better than this. He knows he's got the pace to win this race, but it's long over for that. He's 18 seconds down the lead, so he's at least looking to get the 4th position out of this. But now he's surprised that he's hitting a Team Iberia member who he hasn't seen all race long, who's currently giving him an absolute contra on the track, and a car off track ahead of them. Talking about track, Steven Bartholine being in 25th lapped right now. So this is going to be another tricky thing, because these guys have got a 13 incident limit, and as soon as you reach 13, you're going to get disqualified. Oh, and that's going to be close.
And I tell you what, Nitimaki almost followed him into pit road, but Perez pit first, and I think he did that. He didn't want Mika all over his rear, and that 89 car almost came into pit road with him. I think actually he's just thinking, okay, this is the line I'm going to take to get the draft. Right at the last minute, he ducks out, almost hits that attenuator, John.
Yeah, that was very risky indeed. I'm just going to watch the replay of that, because that was as close as you like, and Perez would have been scared that Nitimaki was going to plough into the back of him and push him into it. But yeah, he just pulled out the slipstream last possible second and just missed the entry of the pit lane. So that'll be a bit of a scary moment, but let's hope he can regain his composure and regain the pace he showed earlier on, because he was absolutely flying. He was definitely up there with the fastest guys on track, and of course fighting for the lead when he made his few mistakes. So at the moment the case with Nitimaki is he's got incredible pace. He just needs to put it to action, stop making mistakes, and he will slowly make his way back up the leaderboard to the front.
And I tell you what, Chris, that is the absolute perfect place to come back out onto the racetrack if you're that 77 car Perez. No one behind you, no one in front of you. Just resume normal operations and turn those laps on.
So Perez back out into 8th position, just ahead of Luke Ridgway, but you say there's a 4-second gap. We've got a great battle going on for the 12th position right now. Eero Solman just about holding it from Kolobal, and Tom Young is just behind as well, so that's really close there out on the track. There's 4 drivers as well. Dave Grunhill picks up the back of that battle, and no, Kolobal, I thought he was going to have a look, but he's stayed behind. He's going to be patient for another lap, or another few corners at least.
And we're getting word that Mikko might have hit the wall a little bit there. Just trying to get confirmation of that. I don't see any damage to his race car, however. Your top 3... Oh, sorry. Nocera is on pit road. Nocera from the race lead is on pit road. So here he comes back out onto the racetrack. And let's see where he's going to feed in. Of course, he does not want to be in traffic as he goes on the inside of the center rest. A little bit of home field advantage, of course, for Club Brazil. This being their home racetrack and being represented in the World Club Finals. But Nocera, again, nicely into no traffic. And that is what he's going to need. He's now going to have to hope that Danny Gariza isn't going to end up in traffic after he makes his pit stop, Marius.
Yeah, we've got another spin down in the grid of the middle sector right there, so I feel like every time you're handing the word to me, we've got a spin on track here. Eero Solman this time being affected, as well as a couple of other drivers in the middle sector, the slow right-hander, actually the slowest point off the track, clipping the inside curb, spinning out. And yeah, he's just been past Kolibal, he's just been past Young and Grunhill, and he's being handed right down into place number 15. So he's lost all of these 3 positions, and Grunhill, now being granted 1 position, looks racy as he spins as well, and he's almost spinning into his teammate. Tom Young almost getting into him right now, and just like that, Eero Solman gets the position handed back again. So these guys may be looking a bit too racy here, especially considering that Tom Young and David Grunhill are in one club, and if that goes wrong from Grunhill and he spins out, he's going to take out his teammate, and that would be disaster for Team UK and I.
Clock's on pit road. Clock is on pit road. So from what was 2nd position at the time, he is making his pit stop. It's a slightly long pit stop, it looks like now, for that number 55 car, but he will be back out and away in a moment's time. Just checking to see whether he didn't speed as he came onto pit road. He was nicely down to 45 miles an hour, and of course now he is back onto the racetrack. Let's see where he feeds in as he comes on the inside of the center S. He has got a lapped car. He's going to come out right behind him. It won't cause him too many issues, however, and you now see that Clock is back out onto the racetrack. In your battle out front, of course, Guiza has caught some lap traffic, and that is, Vicky right now, who's running in the 11th position. Guiza is going to try and find a way to get past him, but this is going to start holding him up just a little bit, Chris.
And the interesting thing to note here is that from 2nd place, Nitty Mucky is absolutely flying. He's in the 1:32 lap times. He's the only driver on the track to be running that kind of pace. Oh, I beg your pardon, Gius has just managed to get into the 1:32s, but he is going to be contending for the lead even after that spin as Gius is in the pits.
So this is going to be the critical part of this race. That 102 car is on pit road. He did have a car pitting ahead of him. That will have to bear into consideration in just a moment. But here comes the 102 machine. Let's see how his pit stop's going to be. He started this race, let's not forget, in the 2nd position. His teammate alongside him, who is out in the 1st corner of the 1st lap of this event. Here he comes. He's not going to take any tyres, so fuel only for the 102 car as we are getting ready for him to come back out onto the racetrack. Of course, we've got to bear in mind where Sandro Nocera is. Nocera is coming down into turn number 1 right now. Danny Gariza is on the inside of turn number 1. This is going to be mighty, mighty close. I tell you what, I think Gariza might just have it. It's going to be a drag race as they come down towards turn number 4. And Gariza's got it as they come past, but Nocera is going to have a little bit of a speed advantage. He knows it. Can he try and take that lead back into turn? Around the outside he goes, and no contact. Nocera just able to hold on there. Contact. No! Spinning around. Huge, huge accident here. And I cannot believe that Nocera coming together with Danny Gariza on the outside of turn number 4.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. Crazy and very predictable.
Giusa just could have given him a little bit more room. It looks like a contact with the back of his car has spun him round, but he was all over the curbs at the time. He couldn't really move any wider out on the corner.
Indeed, and we'll get ourselves a replay of that up on your screen momentarily. As I said, It all happened because they came out of pit road pretty much side by side. Nocera had the greatest straight line speed. He put the car to the outside. He wiggled a little bit under braking, but then was able to get the corner. He ran a little bit wide onto that curve, but you know, a lot of drivers often do that. And then on the inside there, Danny Gariza, as they came out of the corner, I'm not sure whether he was in his blind spot. He didn't see anything that happened to him there, but the two have come together. And of course, Gariza has been able to carry on. And however, Nocera is out of the race, and a huge swing of momentum there in one corner, John.
Yeah, definitely, and it just like that, it changes the whole complexion of the race. And the man who will be sitting happiest at the moment has got to be Matthias Klock. And I was actually about to talk about him before the incident happened, simply because looking at his lap times, he's been the most consistent driver in the field. Just before his pit stop, he did 4 laps in a row that were all within 0.03 of a second of each other. So it shows in a long race like this, being the guy who stays out of trouble and keeps it on track while putting in the good lap times pays off. And Matthias Klock up to 2nd place now. The only man in front of him is Danny Guiza, but we don't know if he has damage. It was a big hit, so I would expect he would have some damage at least. And Matthias Klock just needs to keep it on the road, keep pressing, closing in the gap on Danny Guiza, and we could see a change to the lead in no time at all.
I'll tell you what as well, Gabriel Perez has just been passed by Nitimaki in the number 89 car, so it's now Diaz from Finland, from Iberia. Then it is UK&I, then it's Finland again. Then in the 7th position, we have ourselves a Club Brazil driver. Fritias is now our top Brazilian driver in this field. Colibal is battling with him. In fact, he's going to be able to try and get that pass around the outside as they come down into turn number 5. Watch out, side by side as they come up the hill. Will the 20 car be able to hold on as they come down into the corner? The answer is going to be yes, just about there. And Colibal is going to have to hang in that 6th position for the time being. But good racing going on, Marius, between these two drivers.
Yeah, and Tom Young being the 3rd one in this pack, looking to benefit from the attack Colibal just tried. But I just hope, guys, really, just take it easy. I mean, you've got 15 minutes to go. It's not really that much, but please just take it easy. We've already lost enough drivers here. With Sandro Nocera being lost in the last lap, we've already lost 6 drivers completely out of the race. And we've got several drivers riding across Interlagos with severe bodywork damage at least. So you don't exactly want to lose more here. You're not doing your club any favor. So yeah, this is going to be critical if you throw the car away right now. As well as, yeah, giving away the points for your club. You're also benefiting other clubs because everyone who's gaining a position obviously also gains the points. So, yeah, double penalizing, if you will. So, you really don't want to do anything silly right now. Even if you're Colibal right now, even if you're Tom Young in 8 or 9, you don't have to push it so far. You're already giving your club a good chunk of points here. And Tom Young, for example, 9th, Luke Ridgway in 5th. Look where UK and Ireland is right now. They haven't been into contention, and now they're right back.
This is a race of attrition. It's a race where, again, to finish first you've got to finish. And with 12 minutes remaining on the play clock, anything can still happen. Of course, we have got to pay attention to that battle for the race lead. Although you've got to argue, Chris, if you've got a Club DH 1-2, you're just going to end up, you know, riding at home now. There is no point at all in fighting with each other.
Well, the leaders have an 8.7 second advantage over Nitimaki for Club Finland in 3rd place. And if you're Sandro Nocera, you have to be saying, why am I out of the race? And Danny Giusa is not, because both of those cars made contact with each other, and it seems like Giusa's managed to get away with either minimal or no damage. So I'd say he's very lucky there, and he needs to ride that luck a little bit and just bring it home now, like you say. And Klock will be able to keep Nitimaki at bay unless we have any late mistakes.
Yep, and don't forget, we have got another race after this, starting at 3 p.m. GMT. That'll be 70 laps in the Gen 6 cars at Pocono as part of our exclusively live coverage of the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. Marius, you can run through the top 10, but I tell you what, it is all changed over the last 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, it really
Danny
has.
Grease has been black flagged. This is important. Danny Grease has been black flagged by race control.
Really? So
Yeah.
we do actually have in-race monitoring by the stewards, so that's a good thing. But I wonder what the black flag's going to do for them. I'm not really sure if I agree with that, but well, okay. Let's get a run through the order and focus on the black flag later on. At the moment, Danny Juice is still in the first position for Club DH, following his teammate Matthias Klock, also Club DH, in second. Mikko Nietimeki in third, Gabriel Perez in fourth, that is Finland and Iberia. Then it's UKNI in fifth as Danny Juice brings the car home to serve his black flag penalty. I don't really know what is he going to do. Is it stop and go? Is he going to be disqualified? I've never thought this would even be possible, so gonna keep an eye on that.
I think it will be a either a drive-through or a stop-and-go penalty. We'll get confirmation from race control of what the rules are in just a moment of time.
It
it's
is
just
a stop and
go. So he's back out onto the racetrack, but this is going to push him down now. So I think about 5th place in this race. Ridgway is not going to be close enough to take 5th place away. So Danny Gariza will come out in 4th position, actually. So 4th position there for Danny Gariza. So he moves from 1st down to 4th in this race. So it gives the race lead to Klock. Then it is Nietimeki, then Perez in 3rd will be your net. Then it will be Gariza in 4th, and then Luke Ridgway will round out your top 5. To give you an update on some of the retirees, of course, the most important one is Alexander Vob out in the first corner of the first race. We have Dominguez in the 007 car, who represents Club Iberia, out of the race. Diego Bastille for Club Brazil, out of the race. Sebastian Farfone is out of the race in the Club DH car. And then you have Fabio Sakita in the 26 car, of course, out of the race now. And a number of other drivers as well. So attrition is high, with just 15 cars still scored on the lead lap. Here we go then, down into the last 10 minutes. And I have to say, Chris, the clubs that are surprising me right now are, in many ways, the underdogs. We have Iberia having their first car running 4th. And the Club UKNI, of course, they came last in last year's World Cup final. They've got a car running in 5th place right now and 2 cars in the top 10.
Well, we were talking about this before the race with Iberia. Gabriel Perez started 18th place on the grid, and he's now running 3rd with all the pit stops completed. That is a phenomenal job to gain 15 places. And Luke Ridgway, again, running very well for UKNI in the 5th position. Also 9 and 10 for UKNI, so 3 drivers in the top 10 when we might not have expected them to do quite as well. Still 8 minutes to go though, so that could all change. We all know what can happen out there on the track, especially after the last few laps. But the Giusa one is interesting because it's going to prevent Germany, well, I should say Germany, DH from taking a 1-2.
Indeed. So, and of course, you've now got this big battle again between Club DH and Club Finland in a battle for the race lead. And Nietimeki is running faster right now than Matthias Klock, but with 7 minutes on the play clock, John, it's going to be a big battle for that 89 car, who, let's not forget, has had a couple of incidents in that first half of the race.
Yeah, and I mean, we counted out Nietimeki earlier on after the pit stop, saying, oh, he's 18 seconds off the lead, he's pretty much got no chance. And I'm looking at his lap times, he'd been working his way, flying through the field, managed to get past Gabriel Perez, who a few laps ago, if he'd still been in the position he was, would suddenly be in with a shout of, you know, a podium, well, he's in 3rd at the moment, but even a race win on the cards, which would have been a surprise for Iberia. But yeah, Nietimeki, looking at his last few laps, he's been lapping in the high 32s consistently, and he's also done the low 33s since the pit stop. Compared to the race leader, Klock, who is in the low 34s and high 33s. So Nietimeki is definitely arriving, and it could be a battle to the end between Finland and DH if Nietimeki can keep his car on the road, unlike earlier.
6 minutes 50 seconds left to go. If things have gotten settled down in some parts of the racetrack, however, that battle for P7, P8, P9, Marius, that has not closed down at all. And you've got Tom Young in 9th position, Martin Kolobal in 8th position, and then you've got the 20 car of Rietas in the 7th position. They really are nose to tail pretty much as they come back down into the center S one more time.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a bit surprised they are still going at this so aggressively. I mean, they are basically the only ones who are forming some sort of consistency in fights here. This battle being going on since, I mean, we're 45 minutes almost into the race. I would say it's the majority of the race at least. Taking David Grunell out of this, of course, after he spun in the middle sector, making this a 3-way battle, as Marcus de Freitas seems to have the problem right now, Kolibal being right behind him, and now Tom Young being the 3rd guy in this party. I don't want to say this is over. I think it's far from over, but Freitas, of course, with the 7th position, currently the best ranked Brazilian driver, Kolibal being the 3rd best ranked for DH, and Tom Young being the 2nd best for UK&I. So these guys are all bringing down major points for their clubs, and no one can afford a DNF here, that's for sure. And while it's a bit different, well, I mean, you're not having a regular race where you're racing for championship points, you're racing for your club, and we have to stress that once more. We're going to stress that throughout the whole day. This is about bringing home points for your club, and we've just had the discussion with Joni Backman, of course, club president for Club Finland. He's been a bit agitated that when a driver has a crash, he's going right out of the car, disconnecting and leaving the car completely out of the race. I mean, you're basically throwing away 3 points. Even if you score all the way down with a broken car, 4, 5, 6 laps down. We've seen a couple of guys, Adam Chmielski, for example, in 23, who's only basically going around the track, not trying to do anything, just bringing the car home, getting the points. That's what it's all about. And I believe in a normal race, these guys would be going at it right now, as we've got 5 laps to go. But I think they might just be a bit more conservative trying to bring home the points, because anything else from that is just too risky at this point.
Indeed, and don't forget, as part of our coverage, we are going to talk to a number of the World Cup captains. And we'll talk to them actually about their strategies going into this event and what they, I wouldn't say expect from their drivers, what they hope to achieve with their drivers. We have to talk about the battle for the race lead, however, because the gap is now 1.6 seconds. In fact, I think that's down to about a second on the racetrack as they come past the start-finish line once again. There are going to be, I think, 3 laps left in this race, and it is not over yet for Niittymaki, because the gap is now, what is it going to be? 1.1 seconds on the racetrack. 3 laps to go. Anything can happen here, Chris.
Well, you might say the clock is ticking for Matthias at the front, because he's only got the 1 second, and on the last lap there, he's 0.6 seconds slower than Niittymaki behind him. So Niittymaki has not been the most consistent driver, but he's probably been the fastest driver out there on the circuit, and we've got about 2.5 laps left, and that puts him within striking distance. And just coming back to what you were saying before about the teams as well, every single one of these teams has lost a driver except UK&I, and they're the only team left with all of their drivers running. So although we've got this exciting battle for the lead, it might well come down to who has the most drivers at the end.
Indeed, that is something that you've got to bear in mind. And I talked to Dan Blake actually before the start of this race, a GlacierTV commentator, and he said he just wanted to finish. He knows he didn't have the pace compared to some of these other drivers. He knew if he can finish this car, finish this race even, there was a chance he'd be able to get himself into position. This battle, it will come down to the last 2 laps, and Niittymaki has got a chance, I think. There is lap traffic in play as well. I think he's just got to be careful. Of course, he did spin while he tried going for position early on in this race. He gets a very good run, actually, out of Jon Cow this time by, and Matthias Klock will be looking in his rearview mirrors, seeing where he is. You can make one defensive move, of course, in this race. You cannot weave across the racetrack. So if Klock goes down to the inside, that is why he's going to have to stay down into turn number 1. On the brakes they come. 2 laps to go. And Niittymaki is right there on the rear as they come through the center S. Can he get a good momentum through the curve of the Sol and try and set that car up? In fact, Klock here gets a little bit sideways through the curve of the Sol. This gives Niittymaki the run he needs. Will he be close enough as they come down? You see already Klock is defensive as they come down into turn number 4. Niittymaki around the outside. Will he get the job done? The answer is no.
And also, Perez is gone. Perez is out of the race. So maybe a disqualification or a disconnect.
So Perez there, who was Iberia's knight in shining armor, who was running in the top 5, is out of the race. So anything still happening in the last couple of laps of this race. We'll try and give you an update of what happened on Perez in a minute. There's lap traffic ahead of these guys. This could be a big difference maker in the last lap or so, John.
Yeah, definitely. And for Niittymaki at the moment, it is a race against the clock in many senses of the word. Niittymaki all over the back of him at the moment. He almost got the move made heading out of the curve. I'm forgetting the name of it actually. The first sector, end of the first sector anyway, into the left-hander. But Niittymaki couldn't quite get it done. Clock held on, showing his consistency throughout the race. He's not been under nearly this much pressure for the entirety of it, and he's now got not much time left to hold on, but the speed of Niittymaki could prove to be too much for him. We will all see in the next few minutes.
Indeed, and we are going to get the white flag this time by. There's 55 seconds remaining on the play clock, so this will be the final lap of the first of 4 races here on GlacierTV that make up the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. Down into turn number 1 for the final time. Nitamaki was a little bit off the back there of Clock. Unless Clock makes a mistake in the curve of the side again, he does get a little bit sideways, but Nitamaki is nowhere near close enough as they work themselves down this long back straightaway. You can see the draft comes into play. Nitamaki's going to close it up just a little bit. He's going to look to the outside, but he'll be a brave man that tries to go around the outside when you're that far back. He'll try, however, and this is going to be potentially a move here because Nitamaki is right on the ring. He has to brake because Clock there slow through turn number 4, but Nitamaki was not able to do anything about it. Half a lap of this race to go, almost there. Nitamaki down to the inside of Clock. He is harassing him all over the racetrack as they come down. Right-hander, now this long left apex here as the white flag is officially out on the racetrack. And here we come, just 4 corners left to go. Can Nitamaki do anything on this short run down into Young Cow? We have seen many a famous finish here at Interlagos. Of course, it was at this place where Lewis Hamilton was able to steal the championship away from Felipe Massa. But right now, in the first of our World Cup events, it does look as though like Clock is going to get victory. There's nothing more now that Nitamaki can do unless Clock runs out of fuel. And as they come past the final left-hand kink, it is going to be Matthias Clock for Club Diaz that takes victory in the first of our events. Mikum Nitinati in second, just 0.2 of a second further back. Marius.
Yeah, I'm just amazed. I mean, these guys really going at it, and I must say big props to Mikko Niittymaki making this 18-second gap. We have to stress that. Disappear, almost getting the race win out of this, so he can really be proud with the second place finish, giving second most points to his club Finland right now. Danny Juza comes home in third. Of course, we had a change there earlier as we've lost Gabriel Perez from third position with 2 laps to go. Luke Whitray comes in fourth, bringing the highest set of points to the club UK and I. Mika Hautamäki second for club Finland. So Finland and DH being very close together at the top in points. In fifth, Marco de Freitas in sixth, best placed driver for club Brazil. Martin Kolibal in seventh, DH that is. Tom Young in 8 for UK and I, followed by place 9, David Granil UK and I, and Oliver Botor completing the top 10. We've got 13 drivers in the lead lap, and we've lost a couple of drivers more than I thought here, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think the biggest heartbreak of them all, we're going to all agree on this, the guy who qualified in the 18th position, the number 77 car of Gabriel Perez, something just happened on his last couple of laps, John. Heartbreak, you have to say, not only for him, but that entire stable that is Club Iberia, because he really looked as though he was going to be the star of this first race.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you can compliment him on how he drove that race, and it was a disconnection in the end that cost him. But as you say, starting down in 18th position, we said at the time he was the highest Iberian driver. Let's see what he can do. And within the first few laps, he was making up positions. He got himself into the top 10. And even when he was under pressure from the guys that had already been in the pits, and then he began to battle, I'm trying to remember who he was, I think it was Niittymaki. When Niittymaki got past him, he managed to stay with the Finnish driver right until the end. But obviously, getting into third position, looked like he was safe for a podium, and then suffered a really tragic disconnection. So he will be gutted for him and his club. But of course, you can't blame on the driver. He did his part, and it was the car, or the internet, I should say, that let him down. So that's a real shame for those guys.
Indeed, yes. And we'll run through your final race results in just a moment. But Chris, who stood out for you as your driver of the race?
Well, I have to give it to, well, utterly disconnected, Gabriel Perez coming through from 18th. We just heard John talking about him. He still was the highest finishing Iberian driver. He technically finished 15th even after his disconnect. Fantastic job to get that high up the field. I think we also have to point out Niittymaki did make some mistakes, but made up for those mistakes and could have very easily had the win as well.
So, final race results time. Matthias Clock takes home the victory for his club D-Edge at the first race of the World Cup final here today. This Saturday, of course, being one of 4 races done at the moment. Mikko Nietimäki in second, Club Finland taking home the maximum points for them. Danny Giusa, D-Edge in third, followed by Luke Ridgway, UK and Ireland in 4, Mika Hautamäki in 5 for Finland as well. Then Brazil, Marco de Freitas after a great battle with Martin Kolibal in 7, Club D-Edge, and Tom Young in 8, followed by David Granell, both for UK and I. Rounding up the top 10, Oliver Botor for Club D-Edge, followed by Dan Blake in 11, UK and I, Jerevicki for Finland, and Andrew Streetley in 13, the number 009, the last driver for Club UK and I in the lead lap. And then, interestingly, we've got Kari Alesami 1 lap down for Finland. Gabriel Perez, who's lost the race due to a disconnect. Very sad, we've been talking about that. He's been in the 3rd position, dropped down all the way into 15, Iberia that is. Alex Ruiz right behind him, also Iberia. Augustin Bermudez, Alejandro Bernabe, also Iberia, so a 4-pack Iberia, 15 to 18. Alex Montanelli in 19 for Club Brazil, and 20th is Adam Szymanowski in the 20th position, the last one for UK and I. Not retired, we've been talking about this, Chris. UK and I actually the only club who's not had to retire a car in the whole race.
Yeah,
that
crazy.
could prove important as well, couldn't it? Well,
You're basically scoring points, whatever you do, you need to bring the car home, and that brings us to the next couple of positions, all of which are retired. Eero Solman to start with, Joni Backman having a bit of a stroke there in TeamSpeak as he's witnessed him retiring from the race completely after just a spin. We have to say, you're still scoring points for your club, even if you're way down. Francisco Moredo in 22 for Club Brazil. Sandro Nocera, we've lost our race leader earlier on, 11 laps down for Brazil in 23. Fabio Sekita as well after a disconnect out. Brazil for 24. Stefan Bartholine in 25. Club D-Edge. Thiago Batista in Brazil. Club Brazil, of course, 26th. Kiko Dominguez, Iberia in 27. And then it's Alexander Voss, our pole sitter, who we've lost in turn 1, the earliest retiree of the race, making it 28 cars who run this race. Him scoring in the last position out after just 1 lap. And we're going to be back after a couple of minutes, so we're going into a bit of a commercial break here. And of course, as soon as we've got them, we're going to present you the final points here to give you a view over the actual scoring after the first of 4 races, so we can get maybe a bit of a preview on who's got the shot at making this grid 2 and 3 work. As soon as we're back, we're going to take a look at that. However, do not disappear, do not go away. We've got 3 more races to go. Of course, we're bringing you the first oval race of the day, grid 2 and 3 from Pocono in just under 45 minutes.
Okay,
and then
yeah.
it's back tonight, since it's grid 1 for Interlagos and grid 1 for Pocono. So we're back after a short commercial break, and then we'll talk about points.
Okay, Liam. welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Glacier TV's exclusively live coverage of the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. In the first of today's races, it was all over the place, but Matthias Clark was able to take race victory by just 0.2 of a second from the Finnish driver of Mikko Nitimiaki. In the third place was Danny Grieser for Club Diat, and then fourth, Luke Widgeray for Club UK and Ireland, and then in fifth, Mika Poktamaki for Club Finland. Let's break down some of the important parts of this race just a little bit more. Wilventon's still here with Chris Cohen and also John Monroe, and this race really turned itself on its head before we got down into the first corner of the race, John, with pole sitter Alexander Vob out before we even got through the Center S.
Yeah, and it's come to be expected in sim racing. Controversy starts from the moment the green lights go out, and that's exactly what we saw. We saw our pole sitter crack under the pressure, have an incident, and Alexander Voss found himself out of the race. And funnily enough, the man who he had the incident with also didn't end up finishing, so it shows the attrition rate was pretty bad during that one, and it shows that the endurance drivers seemed to pay off for them. The guys that made no mistakes got the results in the end.
And after all is said and done, Club UK and Ireland are leading the way with 121 points. Club Diat currently in second, 112 points. Club Finland third, 101 points. Club Brazil in fourth, 66 points. Club Iberia in fifth, 62 points. Now, let's not forget, Club UK and Ireland, we barely talked about them in this entire broadcast, Chris, but they did what you had to do. They kept themselves clean from, green light to the checkered flag of this race, and because of the fact they had all of their drivers pretty much finished with the exception of Adam, then it shows that if you get cars finishing the race in the top 10, top 15, you're going to get a good points haul.
There's three words that apply here, isn't it? Finish your race. And Adam Chmielewski, or apologies for mangling his name, but he had an incident early on, caused him a lot of damage. He went into the pits, he had a very long pit stop, it put him 7 laps off the pace, and he just carried on going round. And all of those other drivers around him that withdrew, hit their escape keys or whatever, and bailed out of the race, lost out on the points, and with 6 drivers scoring pretty well through that, they're out on top, which does surprise me as well, because as you say, we didn't have a lot to say about them. The highest finish was 4th, but it doesn't matter that Diach have taken 2 podium positions in that race, because overall they're still in second.
Yeah, and of course this race very easily could have been very different. For Club Diach, for example, losing pole position guy John into the first corner of the first race, it's crazy. But they were able to rebound, and let's not forget that they were able to rebound and are still second, and arguably were the dominant team of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue that the Diach club were the fastest guys out there. Obviously, you can say Nitimaki in terms of pure pace during the race was quicker, but as a whole, Diach had more drivers that were up there with the pace. But it seems to be UK and Ireland that have nailed the consistency. Seeing Luke Ridgway finishing 4th, we never really noticed him too much with his pace. He was 21 seconds off the lead, still picked up a 4th position. Then you look at guys like Tom Young and David Grunhill in 8th and 9th, Dan Blake finishing 11th, and Andrew Streetley finishing 13th. And as we've been saying through the whole broadcast, it's all about finishing the races. It's all about the consistency, not making mistakes and not backing out. And I think Diach also did a good job to rebound from the incidents early on and still managed to pick up the points. Brazil have probably been the most unlucky in that entire race. They ended up way down with only 66 points from that one. They almost scored less than half of the UK and Ireland points, but not quite. It's just, Brazil from at the start were looking like the strongest team and ended up being almost the weakest.
In fact, what we are going to do is going to have a chat with the club, the World Cup captain for Club UK and Ireland, Katia Scott. Now, Katia, coming into this event, Club UK and I always have many discussions of the best strategy to do. I think this year you've got the best strategy so far. Just finish the bleeding race.
Yeah, I think something we always do is, it's sort of a UK mentality. Go out to race, but you just get it to the end of the race. I was a little bit surprised by the pace of some of the guys. Some of the, like, especially the Germans right at the beginning, or the DH guys. I do apologise for the non-Germans in that group. But I knew that we'd be just going out and doing exactly what we did.
At the very top of this broadcast, I said that this race, more than anything, was going to be about momentum. Because get a good race here, you've taken a bit of the pressure off, you've got yourself into a rhythm.
Because we haven't got, half a dozen DWC standard drivers like Finland have got. So we know that when it comes to the crunch in the top two races, we're going to struggle. But if we've got a lead, we've got the drivers who'll drive exactly the same in the top two divisions as they've done in this race, and hopefully we'll do in the oval race, and pick up those points. And if we've got a lead, hopefully it'll be enough for us to take the title.
Now, let's talk a little bit. I'm going to ask you to take off your Club UK and I hat for just a moment and put on the World Cup hat. And one of the things that you and Mike did this year as part of all the preparations was include this second group of races. And that really comes back to a lot of the feedback from members of the community. And I've seen a lot of the discussions, I've been a part of a number of the discussions, that it always used to be that you used to have a lot of drivers qualify for the World Cup, but then not able to race in them because naturally you'd almost have some of the top people try and run in it. And what was the mentality about getting this second tier race? I'm not going to call it a second tier race, but this Group BT race.
It's all about that inclusiveness. We it is a club championship. Pace matters, so the way that the points are scored, these two races are only 35%. The other two races are 65%. So you still need a bit of raw pace there to take it. But we wanted to reflect the fact that both drivers of all abilities, A, can race, B, can take part, C, are helping their club, but also to try and show that make the competition about strength in depth as much as outright pace.
And of course, this is what the 5th year the World Cup has run now. This is the 2nd year as a community project that the World Cup has been run. How do you think it is now having that 2nd year, it's that sophomore year really of community organisation? How do you think this year has really run overall from first qualification to where we really are right now?
I think it's run really well. Perhaps the only sort of disappointing one, and this is something that probably won't run next year, was the last chance qualifier, which was the 4th qualifying session. I think there was 40 drivers total who entered that. So we probably won't run that next year. There might be minor tweaks to the numbers of clubs, numbers of drivers. Although I think this 5 clubs, 6 drivers seems to be a nice sized field. But I think it's running really, really well. The feedback's brilliant. And I think it's running really well.
Well, we'll talk to you perhaps in just a little bit, Katie. Thank you very much for talking to us. We're also going to have a chat with club captain for the Finnish club, Joni Backman. Now, Joni, of course, as well as in the cameras for this race, you are the club captain for Finland. It's been an interesting day, shall we say, for you so far?
Yeah, that you could say that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm being interviewed through my laptop. I only have 3 PCs running, so I can actually make this 18-minute emergency broadcast running. So yeah, it's been an interesting day, and luckily the first quarter of the finals was I would say fair for all the participants throughout. I mean, everyone had their misfortunes in the race, and I just so badly hope that whoever wins the World Cup today would not win it based on you guys had the top 3, but you guys ended up in a wreck and you had no cars finishing. So whatever happens, I just hope it's not like that.
So as far as your club drivers have gone, you had, of course, a great battle at the very end between a recovering number 89 car of Mikko, and also you had Mika finishing in the 5th position, but there was a little bit of disappointment for you as well in that race.
Yeah, Mikko was actually apologizing me when I visited the Club Finland TeamSpeak a minute ago. He was apologizing for those stupid spins, and I was like, "What are you apologizing for? You drove a good race. I mean, everyone makes mistakes, except Gregor Hutu." But yeah, but yeah, there was a scenario where that I cannot just picture. I mean, in any normal race, when you're racing as an individual, I would understand that you just if things don't go your way, you just leave the server, or you just leave a race session and no harm done. But when it's a team event, I just cannot understand the logic or reasoning to quit a race if the car is even 1% drivable.
And of course, you have got 3 races left to go. And the next one is at Pocono on the Ovals. And one of the things I do want to ask you is, why Interlagos, why the 4GT, why the Gen 6 car, and why Pocono?
One word: democracy. I after the after the last qualifier, I set up an open poll to all Finnish members, and I asked them, unlike not an iRacing forum poll, which would falsify the information. I made a poll where I had everyone score their favorite tracks and favorite cars from like 1 to 25 or something like that, and then based on that average, I simply by using democracy majority vote or I simply favored the top 2 choices in tracks and top 2 choices in cars. And since those 2 choices in both were so dominant, and then it was a gamble of 1 out of 4 possibilities. You have 2 possible cars, 2 possible tracks. And yeah, I consulted also Alexia Loma about the final combo, so it was based 100% on democracy.
And if we take off your club captain hat and put on your GlacierTV hat, this is what the 3rd year in a row now that GlacierTV has broadcast the World Cup of iRacing, and in many ways, this is one of the first things that GlacierTV ever did.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first thing that GlacierTV ever did in public. We didn't even have an intro video at the time. We actually jumped in to do the stream for the 2011 Road and Oval finals. So yeah, that was. Can't believe it's like a few years already since that. It feels like 6 months ago, but yeah, it's this is always one of my favorite times of the year to actually since to follow a race with a full field that is not competing as an individual but as a club, which means it can all go completely upside down in 2 laps. It's a BS comment. The Pocono was picked not only based on democracy, but Pocono was one of 2 choices which I had. And looking at when I saw the 2 cars that I had to pick from and the 2 tracks I had to pick from, the Gen 6 at Pocono was basically the one that immediately snapped into my mind, because I personally love Pocono. It doesn't matter what car it is, I love the track. The Gen 6 is not exactly an easy car, but you can make it an easy car if you want to be like a medium pack pace. You can set it up to be fail safe. But yeah, I overall out of all ovals I've driven in iRacing, Pocono has provided the best racing for me. So I expect to see. Well, unfortunately, Pocono always has. Well, almost always it has 1 or 2 mandatory cautions, but I would expect to see, at least in the Division 1 finals, I would expect to see a pretty clean race, but I think 3 or 4 cautions during the 70 laps and lots of overtakes, not just in pits.
Well, cheers, Johnny. We'll talk to you a little bit later on. And in fact, one of the things that we need to talk about, and I know, John, that you're not as a fay on ovals as some of us are, but one of the things when you always think about over racing, it does come down to strategy. And in a race where you can have some pretty good green flag runs, but then also some cautions, then it all really comes down to timing. Get tyres at the right time, you could be golden. Get tyres at the wrong time or take fuel, and then, you know, it doesn't work out for you. It's race over.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of people complain about cautions and they can make the racing boring and break it up too often. But actually, you need a few of them to make the race, make the race exciting and basically add a massive factor to the race, which is going to be the strategies. You know, you could have drivers holding out there, saving their fuel and tyres for the next stop, and not losing time and gaining track position. Whereas, obviously, as we know, you can have drivers taking tyres, taking fuel, and then suddenly you find themselves on alternative strategies, and it just comes down to drivers playing it by ear and seeing how the race develops, and that's what's going to set the guys apart here. Obviously, ultimate pace is going to matter in the long run, but it's going to be strategy that throughout the race that's going to be key.
Well, we have also now got Dan Blake in the booth, and Dan, you raced a little bit earlier on in the 4GT at Interlagos, kind of just made sure you did 50 laps of racing and brought the car home.
Yeah, it was a very traumatic experience. I nearly didn't race because my FPS was down to 15 in qualifying, very, very low and freezing. I spoke to Luke Ridgway and David Grenell and we found a solution. And then another thing I did wrong, which probably turned out right in the end, was I accidentally went to grid with my qualifying fuel in. So I went back to the pits, put my race fuel in, started from the pit lane, and then coming down I saw on the other side of the barrier all sorts of carnage. So I was up to my grid position by the time I'd finished the first lap. After that, I was racing with one of the Finnish drivers and I had a good race with him. He was a bit slower than me, held me up a little bit, and then got past him, went into the pits, and just kept on going really. Saw a lot of people dropping out. I managed to skip past 2 or 3 in the pit stops, which was good as well, so my strategy obviously worked. And then the last 2 or 3 laps, I had a great race with Jere from Finland and pulled off a great move around the outside of turn 1. He was really fair racing, so very good to race. And I think, yeah, it was a very good race for me. 11th is a lot better than I was expecting.
And you're going to stick with us for the Pocono coverage for a little bit anyway. And you've ridden that Pocono before. It is called the Tricky Triangle for a reason.
Yeah, Pocono is very unique on the oval scene. It's not one of the tracks which it's not an oval really as such, because it's the 3 corners and it's very close to a road course in a way as well, with the corners where they are, but definitely a different challenge for the drivers. And I think that it really will be a spectacle to watch this Group B oval race.
Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, you can keep in contact with us all afternoon long as part of our second stream Twitter takeover. Right now, actually, they're showing you a little bit of what is going on and how to build a Formula 1 car. So take a look at that if you get bored of us talking. But don't forget as well, if you'd like to get in contact with us, what you need to do is use the hashtag iRacingWorldCup. Leave a message, say hello to your favourite driver, but importantly, you also need to make sure you use one of the following hashtags, depending on which club you are. If you're a member of Club Brazil, then use the hashtag iRacingBrazil. If you're a member of Club Diat, therefore from Germany, Switzerland, or Austria, use the hashtag iRacingDiat. For the Finnish drivers, it is hashtag iRacingFinland. For Club Iberia, hashtag iRacingIberia. And for UK and Ireland, hashtag UKI. We, of course, will read out as many tweets as possible over the course of today's broadcast, and you'll also see them on our alternate second stream as well. We've got about 25 minutes before qualifying for the next of today's event at Pocono. And, Chris, it's going to be a very interesting race here, because at the end of the day, you talk about cautions at Interlagos. Pocono, you can amplify that if people don't take it easy at points.
Of course, it's a lot different with oval racing, a lot more close quarters racing. You wouldn't typically go 3 wide at Interlagos. I wouldn't recommend it in many places, but we might well see that quite often at Pocono. And each of those 3 turns, because it's not an oval really, it's more like a coat hanger, but each of those 3 turns are distinctly different. So some drivers will be set up to nail 2 of them and maybe slower on one of them. Some drivers might be able to get all 3 at a medium sort of pace, but it's going to be really tricky to get all 3 in one setup. So the risk is, lose a bit of ground, go a little bit wide, make a bit of contact, and cause a caution for everyone. It's not what we want to see. We want to see some really clean, good overtaking, and there's going to be a lot of that, but if half of the race is under caution, it's not the best one to watch, is it?
Well, yeah, especially as caution laps here are 2 minutes and 5 seconds long. So these guys, again, I want to make sure that they keep it together over the course of this race. But at the same time, you get into a long green flag run at this racetrack, it really can be fascinating to see, because you made the perfect point there. You cannot be you cannot have a car set up to work well on all three of the corners, and we'll break the track down a little bit more detail in just a minute. But get a long green flag run, and people is going to have to make even more of those fine adjustments to make sure that they can keep their car in one piece.
It'll be interesting to see how people handle that as well with the club captains. They would have expected them to put in some help getting the setups fine-tuned. I mean, it makes a much more difference in oval racing, because we're talking about tenths of seconds instead of maybe half a second or a second between the field on the race we've just seen. And if those setups are perfect for, like we said, 2 corners, they won't be good for the other one. And if if the team have got together, this is where the teamwork comes in, and come up with a really good setup, that could give them a real edge as a team rather than just the individuals.
Just to let you know as well, this track, 3 corners, 14 degrees of banking in turn number 1, modelled after the now defunct Trenton Speedway. Turn number 2, 9 degrees of banking, and it's designed to be like the tunnel turn at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then turn number 3, it's got 6 degrees of banking, and that pretty much is similar to the Milwaukee Mile. And that really comes down to explain it why, because it's not just the radio of the corners, but also the banking involved in each. So you think about the casters and cambers of the car, one side to the other. There are times when, that car just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I mean, these cars are set up to turn in one direction. You can't really turn them in the other direction, but that's okay because all the corners go the same way. But then, as well, you've got an absolutely huge straight to come down as well. So it's very difficult to get a setup that's going to be really. You don't want to run too much downforce on those setups, because if you do, you're losing too much time on the straight, and if you don't run enough downforce, you're giving up time in the corners. It's a balancing act.
We are going to step aside for a short while, and we'll be right back with coverage of the second part of today's Group B and C race, which makes up the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. Will Vincent, Chris Cohen, John Morrow. We'll be right back. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to GlacierTV's exclusively live coverage of the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. Will Vincent here with John Monroe and Yoni Backman as we get set for another round of racing. This time as we head to Long Pond Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania, and the track they call the Tricky Triangle. This track measures 2.5 miles in length, and it's got 3 different corners with 3 different sets of banking. Turn number 1, 14 degrees. Turn number 2, like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, has 9 degrees, and then just 6 degrees of banking in turn number 3. After somehow finding their ways to the top of the standings, Club UK and Ireland will be looking for a solid finish in the second of today's Group B and C events, as they have the advantage right now over Club Fiat, who is sat in second position. Club Finland, Club Brazil and Club Iberia have had difficult days so far. However, as we see every year in the World Cup, anything can always happen, and at Pocono just amplify that, because this track is truly magnificent but so unpredictable. John, when we talk about Pocono, it really is about keeping your car in the right place at the right time. We talked about strategy a little bit before, but today, really, these guys have got to do a lot of what I call heads-up driving.
Yeah, we are in for one heck of a race here today, Will. Pocono, of course, infamous in the oval world for its unique layout, and it always provides very exciting racing. We're going to see a lot of drivers with high levels of probably aggression here. You know, the World Cup, these guys have got to make up ground for their club and country, especially looking at the bottom of the table in the championship. You've got Brazil way down there after a disappointing road event, and also the Iberia club, which is Spain and Portugal, also having a bit of a nightmare with one of their drivers disconnecting from third position with 2 laps to go. So they have a lot of ground to make up. They're going to have to go at it full force here, and they're going to have to go in with their heads up high, and they are going to be all fighting for the win. The competition is incredibly tough. Looking at the top times, we've got a couple of tenths covering many drivers inside. I think the top 7's covered only by a couple of tenths, so very close action throughout the field. And of course the race could be split up by some caution periods under yellow flag, but that's all to come here after the 10-minute qualifying session, which we're about to have.
Yeah, qualifying is started and the cars begin to put themselves onto the racetrack. As far as the practice went, it was Frank Schiderich for Club Diat who led the way. Then from Sebastian Lindquist again in the Finnish driver in the second position. Marcus Girac, we've seen a lot of him on GlacierTV in the years gone by, in third place for Club Diat, and then Murilo Augusto for Club Brazil in fourth, and then in fifth in practice was Rodrigo Lelias for Club Brazil as well. So after Brazil had a torrid time, as it came to be, in the first of today's session, they've got to hope that they can use this oval event to get themselves back into contention. Lap times here, about 53 to 54 seconds. And race pace, especially on the long green flag run, it can be a little bit longer. As you just saw there, Rodrigo Lewis there, very sideways through turn number 2 as he brings himself down towards turn number 3. But we will go and have a look at Frank Schiderich in that number 50 car. Right now working himself around the racetrack, building up the speed, building up the momentum as he gets ready to get going for his first of 2 laps. And just 2 laps here in qualifying, John. So if you mess up in the first one, take a reset, go and do it again. But really, you've got to put it all on the line, in Schiderich's case, right about now.
Yeah, I mean, you really do need to nail the first lap to keep the momentum up for the second, but Frank has begun his lap now. Let's see what he can do.
Down into turn number 1, as I say, 14 degrees of banking down into turn number 1. You see him bring that car just down into the first seat. It can get a little bit bumpy down here. Then he brings the car back up the racetrack. It dips just a little bit, actually, as you come out of turn 2. As you work yourself down this second straightaway, you can see the tunnel turn approaching turn number 2 on the racetrack. Banked like IMS. And he really just uses the curb there beautifully. Doesn't unsettle the balance of the race car at all. And as he comes down into turn number 3, this is the tricky one. Just 6 degrees of banking. Got to roll off the throttle. Use the brake just a little bit. Get that car set. And as soon as you think you can power it and not clobber the outside wall, you just go full speed ahead as you head yourself down to the start-finish line. And for Sidorich, it is going to be a 52.880, phenomenally quick.
Yeah, puts him right to the front of the grid from the start on that 52.880. No other drivers so far have crossed the line in a 52 second. We have Murillo Augusto in second place at the moment, just in the 53s on a .007, and then a 53.071 for Martin Collival in third position. The highest up man who did compete in the road event earlier on, so showing his versatility there. Marcus Jurek pops up into third position on a 53.009, and these guys now have that one final lap. But Frank Skieterich, on his pole position so far, has actually abandoned his second lap, so he will not improve his time.
As it stands right now then, it is Sidorich from Augusto, Jurek in third, Collival in fourth, and then Linglis round out your top 5. And let's have a look to see whose clubs these are. Sidorich, of course, is for Club Diat. Then Augusto in that number 46 car, representing Club Brazil. Jurek representing Diat. Then in fourth place, another Diat driver. And then Finland for Sebastian Lindqvist in that 88 car. Then you've got another Finnish driver in sixth in Taninen. Tipo Remes, driving for Club Finland, is in seventh momentarily. Christian Piekko is running for Finland, surprisingly enough, in eighth. Another Finnish driver in ninth, and then Thomas Kroll rounds out your top 10 for Club Diat. Again, no Iberians we're seeing making an impression so far, but also the UK and I drivers are not qualifying too high, but that was the case as well in the road race earlier on here today, John.
Yeah, I mean, qualifying, although it is of course important, especially when it comes to oval racing, it's not the most important thing, and you can make your way up thanks to consistency, and some drivers may actually feel less pressure starting from near the back and just want to move forward, as opposed to starting right at the front and being scared of moving backwards due to cars around you being faster or pushing harder. It's all about the consistency, it's all about the strategy. Qualifying is just the little tip on top of the pyramid, and yeah, it does look like UK and I drivers are struggling to hold their position at the top of the championship based on quali pace alone, but as we said, that is just quali pace, and we're going to see how it pans out in the race. That's what's going to be the important factor here, Will.
So we have got ourselves about 5 minutes left of qualifying, just about 5 minutes left anyway. 23 cars have set their qualifying time. The field spread though, that's the interesting thing. 3 seconds between first place and last at the moment. Alex Ruiz in the 24 car, and actually I have to say that back, because Xavier Iberia has actually just gone into 25th, but he is well off the pace right now. But as always, that mid-pack is very close together from P8 down to about P15. Half a second is working between them.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, some of these guys might be even taking the tactic to go slow. We saw Xavier Iberia down there in 25th position. I was actually watching his lap to see what he could do, and he was just not pushing at all, just getting a lap in, and I believe he wants to start from the back of the grid. He might feel safer there, stay out of trouble at the start, and pick his way through during the race. So let's keep an eye on him, because he's a guy that's using that strategy in qualifying, and let's see if he can execute it well in the race. But on the opposite end of the scale, it is still Frank Skieterich, sorry if I butchered that pronunciation there, but he is still on top in the 52.880, ahead of Murillo Augusto, and I don't think anyone will be going quicker than that.
I really don't think that has been a phenomenal lap that he has done there. And he's almost 2 tenths of a second faster than anyone else right now.
Yeah, and definitely unexpected. I mean, look at the practice pace. The fastest time we saw was a 53.126, which would only have put you 6th position in the qualifying. And that's not to mention the fact that these guys only have 2 laps to nail it. If they make a tiny little mistake, which is so easy to do in these cars, not even a mistake, even if they don't absolutely perfect their lines and their exit and entry speeds, they're going to be nowhere near the front of the grid. And Frank has obviously put together an absolutely storming lap and showing that his practice pace is legitimate and he is at the top and there to stay, as he's shown in the qualifying, taking the pole position.
So we have got 3 minutes left of qualifying. We've still got a couple of cars on the racetrack. Ellis Stevens in the number 11 Club UK and I car, just completing his lap. Steve Greenwood now is on the racetrack. He is working himself through turn number 2 right now. And in fact, he is just going to get himself into turn 3. And very slow, actually. I just think he's run out of fuel here. He just brought that car back onto pit road. Iranio Dantas in number 30 car, representing Club Brazil, touches the wall there. And that is going to be his qualifying lap done. He hasn't actually put in a qualifying time as of yet. He's got to get that car back onto the racetrack. He will get 1 more lap to try and get that job done. We are really now just waiting for that 1 car to qualify, and then that is going to be it. But the DH domination in qualifying seems to have rolled over in the top couple of position, but a lot more Finnish drivers this time at the front of the field.
I mean, we saw in the road race the fastest outright pace was from a Finnish driver, so these guys are obviously reigning champions in the World Cup of iRacing as well. DH looking to regain the crown they lost last year. It's a very intriguing battle. They do seem to be the fastest two clubs, but if you look at the standings, it was UK and Ireland with the consistency that's shown that the most important factor is the consistency, not the pace, and they showed that in the road race. Let's see if they can do the same in the oval, or will DH and Finland learn from their mistakes, manage to capitalise on good pace and good qualifying, and get the results on the board that they need. And we've got one driver out on track at the moment. It's Carlos Server, who hasn't actually set a lap yet. He's the only man out on track. Steve Greenwood is in the pits, so it's just him. Actually saying that, Evandro Dantes has just left the pits, and he should have one flying lap. So these guys leaving it very late, getting a bit of time under the limelight of the broadcast, and let's just hope they don't crash for their sake.
Yeah, as I say, Dantas is on the racetrack right now. He hasn't set himself a qualifying time. Just having looked to see where he was in practice as well, and he didn't set a time by my record in practice at all. So Dantas is coming in here with a little bit of unknown around him, and he's not going to get a time in before the end of qualifying. He will have to start from the rear. So there's 50 seconds left on the play clock, and a lap time takes 52 seconds here. He's not even in the exit of turn number 3 yet, so Dantas will start this race from the rear. Carlos Server has got enough time as he comes down into turn number 1 in that number 69 Iberia car. A little bit high there through turn number 1, but different cars will take different lines and different apexes.
Yeah, definitely. And as you were saying there, Carlos Server, I'm not actually sure he will have enough time, because he'd only just crossed the line before it cut to him there, and there was only about 45 seconds, maybe a few more left on the clock. So if you can just get round in time, it's going to be very close, and we'll see in just a minute. But Carlos now heading into turn 3. It's all about nailing the apexes. Don't carry too much corner speed, or you're going to run out wide and end up, losing grip on top of the track and into the wall. But look, Carlos has missed. He's not been very close to the apex of the corner there. Heading out of turn 3, I think he's backed off this lap, has he? Yeah, he has.
He's not going to be able to get past the start finish line in time anyway. So it is going to be Carlos also starting from the rear of the field. And with that, we will head ourselves to the grid and for the second of today's races. And lining up on the inside of row number 1, representing Club DH, is that number 50 car of Frank Shitwich with a time of 52.880. Mario Augusto in the number 46 car will line up alongside him, representing Club Brazil. He was, however, almost 0.2 of a second further back. Marcus Girac representing Club DH on the inside of row number 2, with Martin Collenball representing Club DH also alongside him. Then in the inside of row number 3, Sebastian Lindqvist from Club Finland. A number of Finnish drivers in this part of the grid, as you have Petri Teinonen alongside him in row 3, and then all Finnish row 4 as well, with Teppo Remes and Christian Piekko. In row number 5, Ellis Stevens on the inside for Club UK&I, and Kimmo Vrema from Finland on the outside. Thomas Kroll for Club DH on the inside of row number 6, with Zlatko Kinsvik alongside him in an all-DH row number 6. Adam Shalensky, we saw him earlier on in the road race. He's on the inside of row number 7, and he has Jari Lumaki in the number 12 car lining up on the outside of him in row number 7. UK&I's Laura Bond on the inside of row number 8. Steve Greenwood alongside her. Then row number 9 even, is Andres Quintana and Augustin Oya. Row 10, Rob Ross and Jacob Lehman. The rest of your qualifying times will be coming up on the screen momentarily. Groups of drivers, I think, here, John. Groups of Finnish drivers, groups of DX drivers, groups of UK&I drivers. Actually, it's the last thing you want to do, because you don't want to be caught up in a wreck with your teammates in the first couple of laps as the iRacing.com first safety car brings these cars up to pacing speed.
Yeah, definitely, and that honorary iRacing safety car looks in its mirror to see 29 hungry Chevrolets and Fords lining up on this Pocono grid and now heading through the formation lap. But yeah, as you said, these drivers do seem to be performing in bunches in qualifying. I'm not sure if that's just coincidence or maybe this difference to the setups. You know, maybe the DH guys have found the best way with the setup, and it's helped all their drivers. But it's going to be very interesting to see if they spend their time working together, maybe playing it safe within traffic, just not pushing 100% right from the word go. This could mix up because we could see some drivers further down the grid who need the faster results and who need to make their way up through the field early on, pushing a lot harder, and that could be the difference, you know, between finishing well and finishing in the wall, losing points for your country, and ultimately losing the World Cup.
So, we are getting ready to go racing for 70 laps around this, the tricky triangle set in Long Pond, Pennsylvania, Pocono Raceway. In my opinion, one of the greatest tracks in all of NASCAR, and of course, part now of the IndyCar Triple Crown as well. Track temperature is 74 degrees. We have a southwesterly wind of 3 miles an hour and 42% race humidity. Your rules of racing for today: fuel tank is 18.7 gallons. These guys will have to make at least 1, probably 2 pit stops over the course of this race. However, depending on how runs goes, you'll see them come on pit road for fresh tyres before they need fuel. Don't bear in mind as well that you can do 2-wide racing here. However, some parts of the track, it can be incredibly difficult. And also, as soon as that pace car comes in, we're going to go green flag racing straight away. Very quick green flag here. Always catches some drivers out. Here comes the iRacing.com first safety car then. So, here we go. And the second of today's race is here, exclusively live on GlacierTV. It's green, and it's a good start there by the Diaz drivers. They timed that start perfectly. Girac was able to get the job done there on Augusto as they come down into turn number 1 for the first time. And it is Diaz from Brazil. And you have a battle. I think that is actually one of the Finnish drivers, Lindquist, down to the inside of the Diaz driver of Martin Connerbell, but he wasn't able to make the pass stick as they come down towards the tunnel turn for the first time. Everyone, however, clean for the first part of this race and almost 3 wide in the mid-pack there.
Yeah, it's a DH1-2 at the moment with Frank Skeeter and Marcus Girac in first and second position. Aurelio Augusto slots into that third place ahead of Martin Collable. Let's hope not to see too many incidents early on. We don't want a pace car from the word go, and we want some rhythm getting going in this race, a long green flag period. Let's hope we can see that. But a very exciting start as they approach the end of lap 1.
Indeed, everyone is cleanly through the first lap, and this is where now that first lap is in the books. These drivers will try and settle themselves down into a rhythm. And Citroën has a 6/10 of a second advantage over Marcus Girac right now as they bring their cars back down into turn number 1. It is Augusto in third, Collibel in fourth, and then Lindquist runs out your top 5. Lindquist wasn't able to get any closer, but here comes round the outside. What a pass there by Augusto, able to get past Girac. It looks like Girac lost a lot of time there in turn number 1. Girac down into P3.
Yeah, Girac just seemed to get a bad exit from the corner, didn't carry the speed out of it, and the DH driver had to succumb to Aurelio Augusto for Brazil, who moves up into second, but streaking away at the front. Frank Skeeter has had an absolutely sensational start. He leads this race by an absolute mile after only 1.5 laps. I have no idea how he does it, but that is a dream start for him, and also Aurelio Augusto will be delighted with how his race has begun.
And also, this track is very weird in some ways, that you don't want to necessarily be right in that dirty air if you cannot get past the driver, because all it does is it eats up your tyres. As here comes Collibel. He's looking now down to the inside of Girac, and he might get a good run out of the corner, but Girac able to hold it on that outside line, and he will stay for the time being in that third position. But you have got a 5-car breakaway. Then you have the Finnish train from P6, P7. They two running together right now, and then Ellis Stevens running in 8th, Thomas Cole in 9th, and then Shamensky round out your top 10. Shamensky's up 3 positions since the start of this race. Everyone is still running, everyone is still scored on the lead lap. But I have to say, some very clean racing for the first couple of laps here. No one making any dangerous moves per se, but still close quarters racing, which we get used to at this type of track.
Yeah, that is great to see, and long may it continue. But speaking of the Club Finland, Sebastian Lindquist has moved up to 4th position. It seemed like Martin Collibel, who looked like he was battling for 3rd just one corner beforehand, didn't get the best run out of turn 2, or it might have been turn 1 actually now that I think about it. And Sebastian Lindquist for Team Finland got a great run, slid his car down the inside and took that 4th position away. So that's hit the top Finnish driver at the moment in 4th position, Sebastian Lindqvist, but Kollable's having a look now in 5th. He backs out of that when he looked like he might have had a slight move down the inside, but wants to take it easy. A long way to go in this race. Didn't want to push anything too hard at the start, so it remains the positions they were in.
Indeed, yeah, and I tell you what, Thomas Kroll and Adam Smolensky are having a good battle as well down at the rear end of the top 10 as they work themselves back down into turn number 3 once again, working ourselves on lap number 4 of this race here at Pocono Raceway. Ellis Stevens has caught up to the rear of Petri Tainen as well. So, it's also to say you've got a couple of UK and I drivers battling with a couple of Finnish drivers right now. To give you an update on how the Brazilians and the Iberian drivers are doing, they are a lot further down the field as it speaks to them. No one really represented in the top 10 except for Augusto, of course, but here comes Jurek down to his inside in the same place that he made lost the position at the start of this race. Jurek moves himself back into P2 in this race. Augusto, though, look at the way he's able to pass over through turn number 2, and he's going to have the inside line and potentially the advantage as we come back down into turn number 3. Now, this is exactly what we get used to at this type of racing. You have the car making that pass into turn 2, the other car then gets the good momentum through the corner, able to make that move back into turn 3, John.
Yeah, that was a brilliant switch position by Murillo Augusto, but he's ended up losing out in the end because he had too tight a line out of the final corner, having to give room to Marcus Girac, and Girac holds on to 2nd place, and this has now become a 4-car battle for 2nd. Having Frank Skieterwick has checked out in the lead, and it's Girac, Augusto, Sebastian Lindqvist for Finland, and Kollable in 5th position. These 4 guys are going hammer and tong at the moment. Great racing going on, especially between Augusto and Girac. Those guys giving each other a lot of respect and a few beautiful undercut manoeuvres.
And I tell you what, we were on board there with Sebastian Lindqvist. He's right there in the thick of this battle, and 3 clubs battling for that 2nd place right now. Of course, you've got the Club Diaz driver of Girac in 2nd, the Club Brazil driver of Maria Augusto in 3rd, and then Sebastian Lindqvist for Club Finland is running in that 4th position. And they seem to spread out in turn 3 and then come back together through turn number 1 and 2. And that really does go back to what we said at the top of the broadcast here, also when Chris was here as well. You've got to have a car that works well across the racetrack, but you've got compromise as well. And it does seem to be that all these drivers have that compromise in turn number 3. As the first caution of the day is out at the Pocono Raceway, and we'll get confirmation of who that is momentarily.
Yeah, it looks like it is Carlos Ano Ross from position 22 into turn 3, just getting it loose on the entry, clipping the inside curb, which something critical is about to happen. He's already got damage before that, so no wonder he's spinning there. Spinning across the curb into the grass and hitting the outside wall, coming to a standstill on the outside wall of turn 3. However, he has managed to recover on track with massive damage to his rear, so I wonder how that will affect his race. Definitely repair pit stop, 4 tires and some fuel for him. We're in the caution, Schichterich before Girac.
And we will see whether anyone's going to be bold enough to try and come in and take tyres early on. Now, for some of these guys at the rear of the field, John, you might try and be brave. An extra 4 laps freshening some tyres might make a difference later on. And also topping up the fuel as well. Some of these guys that are probably outside the top 15, it's a risk they can take. Anyone in the top 10, however, I'd be very surprised if they come down pit road.
Yeah, I mean, even if I was further back in the field, I feel I'd have nothing, I'd have less to lose by making a pit stop. So if it were me, I'd probably pull in, take some new tyres, get on the full fuel load so you are in the best possible position while compromising track position. You will have the best possible car under you for the next few laps, and also the strategy will be in your hands at the moment. So maybe these guys wanting to pit at the same time, if you're one of these guys that knows you have the pace to do well in this race and just want to mix it up with the big boys, you need to stay out there, hold your track position, gain as many as you can by others going in the pits, and then see if you, with your slightly more worn tyres, can hold on to the position. And it's going to be that's the big call. It's the big call. It's the big decision. Do you come in for tyres? Do you stay out? And this is where the race suddenly becomes so much more interesting.
Don't forget as well, our second feed, you can find that on twitch.tv/LSRTV. We've had a couple of issues with our YouTube feed, so that broadcast has been moved to twitch.tv/LSRTV, powered by JDR Graphics. Pace car working itself through turn number 3 right now, and pace laps here are incredibly long. However, what that does mean is that you can save quite a bit of fuel. And keep an eye out to see whether anyone makes that journey onto pit road this time by. And it does actually look as though your race leader might be coming in with 8 laps scored complete. And if he brings everyone in with him, then he will be okay. Anyone who stays out, however, of course, will try and get that leapfrog. Everyone in the top 10 is indeed in. So, pit stops are underway for the first time. Chitwich, of course, leading the field in. Durack second. Augusto in third. And you've got to be careful here, Marius, that you don't overshoot your pit box, because it will be a crucial penalty under caution.
Absolutely, we've been talking about this on the road race, and we see Schichterich being very careful there, rolling with just about walking distance, walking speed to his pit stall, and then stopping the car, not overshooting his pit stop, taking 4 tires. And well, we've been talking about this in the road race, and Durack comes out first in front of Schichterich now. It's already critical there, so you can't exactly afford to lose seconds on the pit stop. However, even if you need to reverse, you've obviously got maybe 1-2 seconds to the guy ahead or behind you, so it's not really going to affect you. Here, however, we've got 10 cars sometimes within a second, and if you pit in on the green, that's already going to affect you. But as soon as you pit in, when the caution is out, when the whole field, like just now, the whole field just came into the pits, you're gonna have to get your pit stop right. If you just lose on approaching your pit stall or leaving from it, so if you get wheel spin off the line, it's always instantly gonna affect you, because everyone's just right behind each other into the pits. There's literally no gap between each other, so you can't afford a mistake.
So Marcus Durack comes and he does the leapfrog on Chitterich and takes the race lead away from his clubmate. Augusto coming in 3rd position, he comes out in the 3rd position. The same for Sebastian Lindqvist in 4th and Martin Konopel in the 5th position. And then in 6th is Christian Vickio, and 7th, out 2 places, is Adam Schmilinski. And then Ellis Stevens up into 8th, 9th is Petru Tainen, and then 10th is Thomas Kroll under our first caution of the day. And I was saying a little bit earlier on, John, you can save a lot of fuel under caution here.
Yeah, it is going to make a difference in the long term, depending on when these cautions are coming out. But I'm actually very surprised. I mean, if I was a driver, I would be pulling into the pits, as I said. But at the same time, I'm pretty shocked that not one single driver in the lower ranks of the, outside the top 20 maybe, decided they want to take a risk. They want to lead this race and see what can happen. I would have definitely expected at least one driver to stay out behind the safety car, and they would of course have resumed the race lead because everybody else has been in the pit lane. So that is a bit surprising, but I'd have to agree with the drivers who have gone in the pits. I would say that's the best call at this early stage of the race. There's such a long way to go still.
We've got Joni Backman, the club captain for Finland, here as well. You wanted to talk about that pit thing a little bit?
Yeah, at the time we were speculating that whether or not someone's going to pit or gamble staying out. Well, personal experience from this track, if you have done 7 fast laps with those tires, basically if the caution comes out and you stay out, you're gonna be you're gonna go lead into turn 1, fine. But in the middle of turn 1, that's when your problem starts, because with the old tires, the drivers have to be extremely a lot more cautious with the throttle. They cannot use the same steep lines in and out of the corners. Whereas the guys with fresh tires will just blast the throttle, and they will not only beat you into coming out of turn 1, but coming into turn 2, you're not leading the race anymore, and most likely the train is going to pass you. Like, you're going to lose easily 5-6 positions in 1 lap if you decide to stay out. So in this early stage of the race on this track, it would be just, I wouldn't say stupid, but it would be pointless gamble to take in this track.
And we have got just 1 car out of the race, and that is the number 30 car of Evandro Dantas. Carlos Aranio, driver of the club Iberia, and the number 8 car is scored at the end of the league lap. That's some substantial damage to the rear of that car, and he probably won't be doing anything much in this race. Getting ready for the 1 to green this time by, and you have to say, after all was said and done there, John, a very good start to the race. However, we're only just over 10% into it, and I'm sure these guys want to caution every 7 laps. They want to do a long 15-20 lap run if they indeed can.
I think that's what we all want to see. We want to see green flag action. Of course, it's nice to have a very occasional break-up with the safety car to add a bit of strategy to the mix, but it would be good to see as long a run to cause green flag pit stops. That could be something very interesting if that becomes the case. The man who's lost out the most behind the safety car, not necessarily in position-wise, but annoyance pretty much, the man who's going to be most rustled after that, is going to be Frank Skieterich. He had a massive lead after the first stint. He was flying, he was so much faster than the guys behind who were battling away. Frank saving his tyres, driving smoothly and unbelievably quickly, built up a massive gap. It was about 3 seconds by the time the safety car came out, and all that lead was gone. Came into the pit lane and had actually lost that lead as well as losing time. He's also lost the position, and he's in second, so he will be looking to immediately make his way back past Marcus Irak without obviously having any incident or causing Marcus to slow down, because these guys are of course club teammates and both fighting for the same points. So, you know, Skieterich, he is the fastest guy on track. We saw it earlier on. It's just whether he can maintain it in the second stint, and it's not long till we find out now, because these guys are heading down the back stretch for what will be the second shot at green flag running.
Indeed, it will be. And don't forget, you've got 2 different cars here, but they're pretty much identical in every way, shape or form, except for the fact that they've got slightly different front and rear ends. One of them a Ford Fusion Gen 6 NASCAR, the other a Chevrolet Gen 6 NASCAR. And you can see the difference there. Marcus Irak on the inside of row number 1, driving the Ford Fusion. And then on the outside of row number 1, you have the number 50 car of Frank Skieterich, which has the Chevy. And we are going to go back to green flag racing with 11 laps scored complete in this, the second of 4 races exclusively live here on GlacierTV that make up the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. Will Vincent, along with John Monroe and Marius Gollenbeck, pace car. The iRacing first safety car will come back onto pit road. We'll go back to green flag racing. Can Jirek get the job this time by? We'll find out any moment now. Pace cars in, green flag back in the air, and a good restart by Jirek as they all come down into turn number 1 once again. Let's see whether everyone can make it safe, and for the most part they are still too wide throughout the middle part of the pack as they come down into turn number 1. We're going to try and get that single fire as much as possible. You do get a big loser in Pietro in the number 23 car, who struggled a little bit there on that restart, but they're still too wide racing, and Ojopso loses the position there to Sebastian Lindquist, Mario.
Yeah, and 4 wide in the back there. So far, no one in the wall, no one had a crash, so far we're clean. And it looks like Skieterich is right on the back of Irak here, as even with the better start, Irak can't really get an advantage here, so the club teammates may be looking for a switch in the next couple of turns.
Yep, and they come down into turn number 2, the tunnel turn once again. And let's see whether or not Skieterich will try and make that pass. He probably won't want to do it out of turn 3. He might try and do it down into turn number 1. We have seen a lot of passing in between turn number 1 and turn number 2 on this racetrack. Here they come, back down into turn number 1. The gap was just 11 100ths of a second that last time by, but Skieterich actually just got out of the gap just a little bit. And we had a couple of comments there saying 3 wide into turn 2 is always a good idea. I'm sure a little bit of sarcastic humour, but Skieterich's car wasn't able to get around Jirek there. I think he did actually just want to stay behind, because caution's back out on the racetrack, and our second caution of the day, and it is Carlos Aurelio again spinning that number 8 car, and he was I'm just trying to figure out what happened to him actually, and he made contact. No, he just spun that car by himself all over the place. And our second caution, same driver, and we're under our second safety car period. I have to say, that car, I think, needs to realise that this day might be done now, John.
Yeah, I think you probably should call it a day now. Carlos, he'll be feeling a bit guilty for causing both cautions there, and I'm just trying to watch him on the replay, but he seems to be suffering from quite a lot of lag. I don't think that's just me, so probably the safest option would be to park the car, but if he feels he can continue and fix whatever damage he may have had, then he should be okay. But we want to see as much green flag racing as we can. And I'm sure the drivers will be frustrated with that. Another yellow flag, but this is came back to the thing about the pit stops. You know, a driver who's right at the back, if they manage to stay out and gain a low track position, then come in for tyres here, they'll be back at the back of the grid once again, but with fresher tyres than everyone else. So it's all about the leapfrogging. But as all the drivers came in the last yellow flag, and it was only 2 laps ago, I doubt there'll be too many coming in again here.
Indeed, compared to the longer run we had, and let's not forget, we don't want 8 laps to be defining what we classify as long and short in this race. But aside from that number 8 car, it really has been pretty respectful racing, if not slightly crazy so far, Marius.
Yeah, it really has been, but I'm surprised that, except for Carlos, who's had to cross the second caution now, there's not really been any bigger incidents. So you would expect, I mean, drivers going 3 wide, 4 wide into turn 1 after a restart, if there's just a single mistake from one of these drivers, it's always going to end up in mayhem. And so far, I have to say, this is fairly clean. I mean, Carlos, no offense, but it's definitely time to retire the car now. And we'll try to get you a picture of the rear end damage he has suffered in the second of his crashes right now. And I'm pretty sure he's not going to get any of that repaired in the whole race time. So probably a good idea to retire the car now, or at least continue a bit slower to not cause the third caution.
Indeed, and we are on board there. We get a little bit of footage to see just how bad that Ford Fusion is, and we will see also whether or not there's going to be anyone cars come onto pit road this time. By at least none of your top couple of drivers are going to come in. Anyone towards the rear of the field? Are they going to take the gamble? The answer is going to be yes. We've got one car, Sandro Nocero, of course, who has that crazy race a little bit earlier on here today at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pass, but we've got another car in as well, just looking at my time and scoring. Eli Rocha on pit road, and also Kimo Verema. And this is what I said. If you're at the rear of the field, John, take gamble. Nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're right at the back, you might as well take the fresh tyres, and it will actually give you the advantage, unlike last time where it wouldn't have helped. But it was very interesting, as we were looking at the damage there to Carlos's car, Marcus Chirac, the leader, looked like he was pulling into the pits, then at the last possible second ducked out to try and throw a dummy to the guys behind him and send them into the pit lane, which is an interesting strategy. There's a chance that Marcus and Frank would have been in the same team speak, so Marcus would have been telling Frank that he's going to throw a dummy and see if he can get anyone to make a mistake and end up in the pit lane, but that hasn't happened, and his trick hasn't worked there, so Marcus remains in the lead, didn't go into the pits in the end, and we have another couple of laps here under caution. But yeah, a very exciting race. Apart from the two spins of Carlos, it looked very respectful out there. We saw some great overtaking and battling for that second position, and more throughout the field. So, and they've been very clean, giving each other a lot of room and no major incidents, as we say, apart from the two spins. So yeah, I'm very impressed by the racing so far, and let's just hope we can get a longer green flag section this time. I don't want to put a curse in it though, because that's what happened last time.
Of course, 15 laps out of 70 score complete, Marius. We have got think a little bit about strategy, and right now the strategy is follow the car with the blinking lights. However, long term, you can either go really hard for the first stint, in which case you first part, in which case you are going to lose a little bit later on, or be slightly more cautious, try not to lose too many positions, and then in the second half of the run, if it goes green, that's when you really charge.
That's indeed possible. I mean, we're basically agreeing on about 32 until maybe 35 laps on fuel saving here. So all of these guys are going to have to do one more pit stop at least, come into the pits, take 4 tires and fuel. But the interesting bit is, I mean, even now, we've seen about 3 guys come into the pits. One of them has been, of course, one of the Brazil drivers, Sandro Nocera, so he might try just something crazy. I mean, he's already in the back of the grid. It doesn't really matter if he restarts in, let's say, 19 or 22. So, imagining that it would stay green for a couple of laps now, maybe 5, he would be the one with freshest tires and fuel out, and then everybody else would need to, because they've already got about 5 more laps on their tires, and he would be just basically waved through the grid into, let's say, the first 5 positions. So on the restart, he's not really got significantly worse tires, so he might even be able to hold the lead and then only have 1 pit stop left, so he's always gonna benefit from that. However, if you're in the other position, if you get another yellow flag run about 3 or 4 laps in, then you obviously have to take tires, and you're still not gonna be able to make it to the end. We're trying to talk about strategy if it comes into play, let's say in earliest point of the race, maybe 10 laps time, lap 26, 27, then we can maybe take a look at what would be possible. And even then, you're maybe risking your entire race on just a lap of fuel. So you definitely want to stay safe, you definitely want to take an exact look on your fuel consumption, because if it comes down to a green flag run till the end, then you might be troubled and you need to do a green flag pit stop, and that's going to cost you big time.
Looking high above Pocono Raceway then, under our second caution of the day in this, the Group B and C Oval Final that makes up the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. For those of you who are just joining us earlier on here today, we had the first of the 2 road races, and it was Club UK&I through pure consistency, if nothing else, that got them to the top of the point standings. And, of course, Diach are really charging them down. Diach looking to become the first 4-time World Cup champion. You've also got Club Finland looking to make it back-to-back victories. Club UK and I are looking for their first World Cup crown, and as the lights go off on the pace car, you've got Club Iberia and Club Brazil also looking to get their first club crown as well. You have to say, out of all the teams so far, it does look as though that Finland, Brazil and Diat, of course, are the strongest of the three teams on this oval side so far, John.
Yeah, and I have to say, as much as it hurts me to say, they were also the strongest on the roadside in terms of pace. It's just where they are at the end of the race in the final standings that matters, and that's why UK and Ireland have been at the top. So obviously UK guys are struggling slightly more in this race, and there's a long way to go, but unless they find a lot of pace, they're going to struggle to make it further up the grid. Adam Chmielowski is the highest up driver in the 6th position at the moment, so still not the end of the world, and they're still in a good points position, but they're going to need to get a few more drivers up there in the high ends of the top 10 if they want to continue their fight for their first World Cup. At the moment, as you say, Diat are looking the strongest, and they are looking to regain their crown from Finland. And Finland not looking too bad themselves actually, but all is going to become clear once the pace car pulls in at the end of this lap.
Indeed he will. We have just one car out of the race. You have 28 cars still scored on the lead lap. Carlos Serrano does bring his car back out onto the racetrack. I'm really hoping that car is not going to be too bad. The last place car right now, that is Kimmo and Viamra in the number 9 car representing Club Finland. Cars working themselves down towards turn number 3, which, let's not forget, only has 6 degrees worth of banking, as the Club Diat duo of Marcus Girac and Frank Chitowicz try to make it a Club Diat 1-2. Now, of course, the 50 car led the way at the start of this race after scoring an emphatic pole position. The only driver to get themselves into the 52-second bracket, however, Girac able to get the job done on pit stops and has led ever since then. Here comes the pace car onto pit road, and we are back to green flag racing here at Long Pond. A little bit of tyre wiggle actually there from the car on the outside. That was Chitowicz, but they're too wide, too deep as they come down into turn number 1 for the first 8 positions actually. Let's see whether they can all make it through. They're trying to find a little bit of a gap. You can run easily 3 wide from turn number 1. You've got to get it sorted out, however, by the time you get into turn number 2. And out from would Girac a little bit wide there? Yes, he would. Chitowicz was not able to capitalise.
Augusto under serious pressure at the moment for 3rd position from Sebastian Lindqvist, who has made the move stick. Can he get it slowed down in time to get the car turned in? He's going to run really wide on exit, and Augusto's going to come back through. It's a repeat of the earlier move. Augusto losing the position on the outside, getting a cut back, heading into turn 3, and will he make this one stick this time? It's an almost identical repeat. Aurelio back down the inside, but Lindqvist is going to have the pace out the corner, and it's almost identical so far, but Lindqvist does not get the power down as he did earlier, and Aurelio holds on to the 3rd position. But more stunning driving from these two guys really have provided the most exciting racing so far. Martin Collabo in the 5th position is right in behind them as well, as Sebastian continues to force his way around the outside, and these guys have already lost quite a lot of time to Frank Skieterich and Marcus Girac out front for Diat.
Indeed, the 2 DX drivers, whilst they're pulling out an advantage, are likely to line of turn, but Augusto in that 46 car is trying his hardest to close that gap back up. 3 wide almost, down into turn number 2 again. Adam Tremensky in the number 82 car representing Club UK and Ireland, trying to work on the outside there of Martin Collenball in the 5th position right now. That 82 car, I think, will be a dark horse to get himself into a podium position once all is said and done. But the 2 DX drivers out front, I think actually this is a battle for the race lead. There might be a pass. Chitowicz is going to try and go down to the inside. He gets a bit of momentum, but that inside line, you can't get on the gap as early as you want to, and Girac holds it off for the time being. I'm wondering what is going through the mind right now, Marius, of Chitowicz. I think he wants to lead this race, but he can't find a way past Girac.
Yeah, and they surely have to agree on something there. I mean, there's a battle going on all the way in the race, as currently Christian Pico is fighting Ellis Stevens for P number 7. But coming back to the lead fight, actually, I mean, these guys are for the same club, and obviously they are sharing the biggest set of points right now, but it really looks like Skieterich is the faster driver here. He's not only set the pole position in qualifying, but he's also had an absolute blast at the start of the race. So he's going to be able to lead the race as soon as he can here. And I believe as soon as an attack comes, Girac won't fight him. He won't try to gain the position on a big fight. So if he just tries to overtake, I believe he's going to let him by. But it doesn't really come to that. It just looks like you can't exactly overtake when you won. You need to prepare for a couple of laps.
Now might be the time, and if he doesn't get it through turn 1, perhaps into turn 2, Girac is taking a very high line from turn 3, which, whilst it does allow Shitaruk to close up into him in the centre of the corner, it allows Girac to get on the gas a little bit earlier. And I have to say that Shitaruk might have had to roll out the gas just a little bit.
Oh, he went Augusto in the wall. Big
That is
slam
big.
in the wall.
We'll get ourselves a replay of that. That was on the exit of turn number 2. And his car got mighty loose there as he came out of the corner. He just scraped that
Yeah,
car.
and it's done. That
just
car
a
is
little bit.
definitely damaged. He's just getting so tight through turn number 2 now. I would be surprised if he's bringing it down the pit road this time. However, he's really looking for a caution as Kolibal goes straight past him, not able to defend. He's trying to go to the inside to defend Lindquist, but it just looks like the car is bogging down. It doesn't want to take the inside line, and I would be surprised that he's going to take this car much out longer, so he's really hoping for a caution here.
Indeed, yes. And he's lost that position already. Now, the damage is not going to be end game changing. He is going to lose position. Say he runs high through turn number 1 again. He's going to have to make sure he doesn't hit that wall at all. But I think that if he can just get this car to another pit stop, he might really take a little bit of repair while he's taking his 4 tyres and topping up the Sunoco race wheel as well. But I think he's now back into a bit of a rhythm as well. But losing that position to Sebastian Lindquist is going to be critically important, because that gives another position to Club Finland compared to points which Club Brazil really need. Let's not forget, John, that they are 4th in points right now. Ellis Stephen and Petri Tainen are going side by side in turn number 3.
Yeah, they're down in 14 points, but they're obviously having, you know, they're going to need to get their cars at the front at the moment, but one man is unstoppable, and that is our new race leader, Frank Skieterek, in the first position. He is absolutely checked out once again. Obviously got past Marcus Girac when we were focusing on Aurelio's damage, and there's been a change of lead, and Frank Skieterek was 0.8 of a second quicker than Girac on that last lap. Even though it looked for a second like he was going to come in second place before Aurelio hit the wall in the exit of turn 1. So yeah, that's very interesting indeed to see how Frank, let's see if he can maintain this pace, or if he's going to be harder on his tyres than the guys around him. But it will all become clear soon. Let's just hope we can keep this green flag section going.
And Ellis Stevens was able to get the job done there and move himself up a position compared to Petrik. Also, Augusto is still falling back, and Pico was able to get past him there into turn number 3. And to give you an update as well, Adam Chilinsky has brought his car to pit road. He did exactly the same thing as Augusto did, and he has now scored 1 lap down on the racetrack. So it is Shitaruk from Girac, from Kolibal from Lindquist, from Pico, then Augusto and Ellis Stevens in 7th, Tiernan in 8th, 9th is Lettuce, and Kroll round out your top 10. As we saw in the road race, this mid-pack is incredibly competitive, Mario.
Yeah, it's just incredibly close. I mean, we've got battles all around the track. But I want to come back to that damage bit we talked earlier about. I mean, a lot of drivers having issues getting loose out of turn 1. So if you slam in the wall there, it's just going to affect your entire race. You're never going to be able to repair it just in time. You need like 4 cautions for that. So whatever you do, avoid the walls. Whatever you do, you cannot afford damage. And I've been talking to one of the DH drivers tonight, Robin Mundhank, who's actually going to lead the oval pack there. And he said, whatever you do, you cannot afford any damage. You can afford losing 1 second because you missed a turn entirely, or because you went 2 or 3 wide into a turn. However, as soon as you hit the wall, your race is over. You're going to be tossed down the grid, and this is going to be more important in the Grid 1 race than in this one, because even you see Murillo Augusto has got a significant drop in pace. I mean, he's obviously like half a second slower than before. He's not immediately tossed down the grid all the way. He's losing positions, okay, but he's still able to hold his race in contention. If that happens in Grid 1, you'll be way outside the top 10 already.
Indeed, and I think that all comes back down to the fact that this track is a huge compromise when you build a setup, and you have to find a balance between the 3 corners, and as soon as you get yourself a bit of a damage, it's not like one of the cookie cutters where, you know, you can just kind of find a way of handling it. This car is horrible as soon as you kind of lose that, and Ellis Stevens able to get past Augusto there to move himself up into 6th position. And of course, the guy who was leading the Club Economics charge is now scored 28 and 1 lap down in this race. Approaching about 3rd race distance now, lap number 26 on 70 here at Coconut Raceway. Our longest green flag run of the day was driveway Lilius there, just going to the inside of Augusto, and also Taylor was also able to get past there as well. So now Augusto is down to the 9th position on the racetrack, And your top 10 are getting a little bit more spread out. Go back to about P11, they're still right close together in some parts of the racetrack, Tom.
Yeah, definitely, and we're seeing battles all the way throughout the field. You can see there Rodrigo Lelis in 8th, just ahead of Petri Chien in 9th. That looks like a close battle at the moment. Augusto dropping back, as we say, with Thomas Kroll just behind him. But the one interesting thing about this track is the flat banking. I mean, it's quite similar to a road course. So, Marius, I don't know if you want to take us further into detail about that.
Yeah, that's another point I've been talking about with the DH drivers. They all said it's easier to drive here if you've got road course experience. If you're a road driver, maybe this might be one of the few tracks which you particularly think would be easy for you. Obviously, being an oval, being the tri-oval, is something really different than the quarter milers or even the bigger two-turn tracks, if you will. This is going to bring you down to maybe getting the composure out on the gas. You obviously get the highest powered oval car here, but with so little banking, you just get no help to keep the rear under control. And at the end of the stint, if you've got a setup which goes tight, which sort of pushes over the front, you're never going to have an issue with that. But if your setup goes loose in the end, and you've maybe mismatched your setup preparation in the beginning, then you're obviously going to have so many issues with getting the rear under control out of these turns. We've seen it in turn 1 already, John, and we're already, we've just been 5 laps into the race, and we've already seen guys having issues there. I wonder how that's going to be in turn 2, and especially in turn number 3, when we go down 30 laps into this race, for example, if it really stays green.
Yeah, I'm just riding on board with Thomas Kroll there, got very, very close to the back of the struggling Murillo Augusto. But yeah, I mean, as you were saying, it will definitely advantage some of the road drivers due to the low banking, and it maybe helps them, especially once they've been taking part in the road race and the oval race. It can also help those guys a little bit with that. It's one of the tracks they can actually adapt to, and we could see more, a higher range of drivers that are competitive here. But Augusto, yeah, losing out there. Well, he's actually, he's still managing to hold on from Thomas Kroll. I think Kroll's backed off a little bit after he got scared in turn 1. But yeah, this race is developing very nicely. We've got a nice green section here. If it keeps on going like this, fingers crossed, we could be seeing stuff like green flag pit stops here, Will.
And green flag pit stops at this track in any car is incredibly difficult. I run on the iRacing.com Pocono 400, which is on GlacierTV, and it was horrible to try and pit that car out of turn number 3. It's even worse in these Gen 6 NASCARs because you've got to find a way to stop it. Well, essentially it's on steel brakes down to pit road speed, which is just 55 miles an hour. I've been having a look down the bottom end of the field and see a car on pit road, and that is Alex Ruiz there in the number 41 car just coming out of pit road, now scored a 1 lap down. But even towards the rear end of the top 20, these guys are battling for each position, and Zlato Ziznek and Augustin Oya battling for 14th, 13th position on the racetrack with Yari in the number 12 car right there behind them. John, these guys really are putting it out on the line, but as this run progresses, these cars are going to get looser in some ways and then tighter in others because you can't get the power down, and the rear end's going to slide out, and you get ever closer to that exit turn 1 wall. Also, the exit wall to turn 3 as well.
Yeah, and these drivers will just be begging, please let me come in and get some fresh rubber on this car so I don't slide up as much. But then saying that, when you come out the pit lane, I hope these guys have practiced the pit lane exit because it's such a tricky one, especially with traffic around, and the cold tyres makes it even more demanding. Pulling out the pits sometimes in practice, it's quite a common time to crash because you're on such cold tyres and you're trying to gun it like you have been in the rhythm of doing for the last 10, 15, 20 laps. So that's going to be an interesting factor. Let's see if these guys can keep it all together when they come out the pits. And obviously on the worn tyres, it's a good case of seeing who's been using their tyres more and also who can keep it together and maybe back off a little bit, brake a little bit earlier, take a little bit less corner speed to help them with their worn tyres and prevent them hitting the wall like we've seen a couple of guys do already.
And let's not forget here as well, track temperature is 74 degrees as we had, but because of the fact it's not as overcast, these tyres will heat up their tyres a lot more. Southwesterly wind of 3 miles an hour, that's not really playing much into the draft here, but there is a potential that it should do so on recent, especially late race restarts here as well. 31 caution out, and this is a 2-car wreck. Laura Bond and Ellie Roger there down, and they're battling outside the top 20. Coming down into turn number 1, Laura Bond looking as though she was trying to work on John Jenkins in the number 43 car. I think she was almost trying to push her teammate down into the corner, and that caused a secondary impact, which caused the Club Brazil driver coming down into the corner, nowhere to go. Laura Bond out of the race, the 19th car out of the race as well. In fact, we've got substantial damage, and the replay is up on your screen. So that long green flag run ends with a caution, and just having a look back at it again, it does look as though actually that when I look at it again, it was actually John Jenkins who slowed down very early into that corner, and that is why Laura Bond ended up tagging her own teammate and causing what was then that secondary impact with the Club Brazil driver. But Laura Bond's rear end really is smashed up right now. But pit road will be open in about a lap and a half time, and Marius, everyone will be coming in right now because we are very close to half race distance.
Yeah, no question. Everyone's going to come in now. And this is exactly the point where fuel calculation comes into play. I mean, we're going 70 laps, and this is lap 32. So you might be able to stretch it to the end. However, if there's one yellow coming out, you need to save fuel, and you're more likely to make it to the end. Let's say that. But it's never guaranteed that you're definitely going to make it to the end now. You're going to have more of a struggle if it stays green, that's for sure, because you're running 35 laps under green. But if it goes into yellow, and you're looking at a fuel consumption of about 32 laps, just pressing the clutch, cutting the engine on the straight, is going to save you that 0.5, 0.6 liters per lap, which you need to make it to the end. So whatever happens, taking a look at strategy, if it stays green, you're maybe going to run for another pit stop, and that's going to be tricky, I tell you that, if it really comes down to green flag pit stops in the last 3 laps. If it goes yellow, pit road is open, everyone coming in literally. If it goes yellow one more time, we're pretty likely seeing one more pit stop of a few of the drivers. We're pretty likely seeing no pit stops and guys going risky. And if it goes yellow 2 times, well, you're obviously not really having a problem with fuel then.
Pit road is open. All the cars into their pit boxes. Girac had Citrix right alongside him as they came onto pit road. Probably be 4 tires for everyone here because it's a very long run. Let's see who will be able to get out in front. In the first pit stop, Girac was very, very good on pit road. It looks like he might be again, and it's going to be a battle to the line. Girac gets it back from Citrix. It was very close between them. 3rd place, Martin Connenball. 4th place, I believe, Rodrigo Leles there, who's getting himself up into 4th. Sebastian Linguist there, losing in position. He's now in 5th. And Pico, Stevens, Kroll, Remes, and Tainen, they round out what will be your top 10.
Yeah, and it looked like one car did stay out, and it was Adam Shumalowski, it looks like, who has managed to get himself back onto the lead lap, I believe, because I'm pretty sure he was a lap down with his damage, and he's the only man who stayed out. That gets him back on the lead lap. He'll be hoping for another caution almost immediately after this to stop the amount of time he's spending on worn tyres, get him on fresh boots, which could see it play right into his hands in this race.
So, pace car is still on here, and for the most part, not many big changes on the racetrack. However, the important one, once again, Marcus Girac on pit road just absolutely dominated his teammate, Mario.
Yeah, he did, and he not only did that now, he already did that the first time, and yeah, I wonder how it's going to look now as Adam Chmielewski stayed out, and he's obviously in 27th, so he's a lap down and likely to go in this time again, so we have the regular order back. But this is the second time now, or the third time in fact, we see Girac in front of Schichterich, and we've seen definitely Schichterich is the faster driver. He's already pulling away as soon as he's past Girac, but how are they managing this right now? They did get a good switch the last time because obviously Morila Augusto had the issue there, and they were already driving away. But this time, Kolimal, Puko, Lelis, Lindquist, all these guys are looking to get the position as soon as they try to switch.
And we are getting close. We'll probably restart actually with half of this race complete, and it will really be reset the order and start again. But for those guys now out after that long green flag run, some of them might have made a couple of changes to their race car. Of course, no one knew what the track conditions were, John, before this race started. So some of them might have thought, okay, I'm a little bit tight in turn 1. Of course, if you were the Club Brazil driver, then you definitely were a little bit tight in turn number 1. But for other these drivers, they might try and find a way, using the wedge that they can make adjustments on pit stop, also with tyre pressure, to just try and find a way of making that car handle better for them on this second half of the race.
Yeah, and that's when thinking on your feet comes in handy as a skill, and also your setup knowledge, because you know how to adjust that car whilst driving, how to make it feel better in the turns where you need it. And as we say, it's all about compromise, but you might want to change, where you're strong during a race. You might say, well, I've been struggling to pass in the corner that I should be strong, and I've been being overtaken on the corners where I'm weak, so maybe if I balance it out a little bit more, I might be okay. Things like that. These drivers can make slight adjustments during the race and while they're driving, so it's going to be interesting to see if that makes a difference to anybody in particular, but it looks status quo at the moment.
Indeed. Don't forget that you can be a part of the action all weekend long here on Glacier TV as part of our Twitter takeover. We have moved the stream over to twitch.tv/LSRTV, but the rules are still exactly the same. What you need to do, use the hashtag iRacing World Cup. Then, depending on the team that you're favouring or representing, then use one of the following hashtags. For Club Brazil, it is hashtag iRacing Brazil. For Club DH, hashtag iRacing DH. For Club Finland, it is hashtag iRacing Finland. For Club Iberia, hashtag iRacing Iberia. And for Club UKI, it is hashtag iRacing UKI. Lights are out on the pace car with 35 laps and these scored complete at the line. Your top 10 from this restart. Chirac on the inside of row 1, Frank Schittrich alongside him. And row 2, Martin Collevol on the inside, Rodrigo Lias on the outside. Row 3, Sebastian Lindqvist and Christian Bierko. Row 4 is Ellis Stevens and Thomas Kroll. And row number 5 is Tefo Remes and Petru Taylor. Marius, this restart I think is going to be the most important of the race, because I think this will now set the tone, the feel for how this is going to be for the second half. Get this restart right, all's going to be good. Get it wrong, you're fighting a losing battle from here on in.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, you're basically looking at the restart at first, but then you're looking at strategy, and we're exactly halfway in the race now, so 35 laps to go as soon as we go green, and then it really brings you down to, am I going to make this on fuel, or am I going to risk it? That's probably the bigger question you're going to have to ask yourself. Or do I have to bring the car down again? So a lot of these drivers hoping for another yellow flag run, because that will ease up them and obviously make the choice a little easier. However, same situation at the front. Chirac against Schittrich, Kolibal in third, second row with Rodrigo Lelis, then it's Lindqvist and Puko. So we've got DH in the front and Finland in the front, and I'm pretty sure these guys have learned by now how to take the restart, so I don't think there's going to be any possibility for Chirac and Schittrich to switch early on, and this is going to get a lot closer as we progress, I guarantee you that.
Indeed, here comes the pace car working itself through turn number 3. Once again, half the race will be in the books the second that pace car comes in, and we'll be going racing for another 35 laps here at Pocono, Long Pond, Pennsylvania. And here we go, green flag back in the air. Your top 3 drivers are good. And here comes Rodrigo Lelis. He's going to be on the outside as they come back down into turn number 1. The top Brazil driver is going to be boxed out, however, as it looks. Will he be able to go? What a pass! Up into third place. He didn't manage to get it perfectly done, but he has good momentum in that corner. He might be able to get himself work on the outside. The answer's going to be a little bit loose there, and there comes Colliball back, and they're going to be 2 wide to come down into turn number 2. But for Lennis, I tell you what, he was almost able to take P3 away there, Mario.
Yeah, and he's going to make it. He's going to make it on the outside. Colliball just sticks back, and that's a pretty impressive pass. I mean, he can go on the outside in turn 1, but you'll never be able to get out of the turn quicker than the one inside. And also Christian Puko is trying to get the position back from Ellis Stevens, but Stevens just on the outside in turn 3, able to carry more momentum. And it really looks like a game between entry and exit here. I mean, you can't overtake in the middle of the turn, that's for sure, as Kolibal is trying to get the position back now. Will he be able to do it on the outside? I don't believe so. So, yeah, it's really about, I mean, he's going past now on the inside. You see that? He's running high, pushing on the front, and then he's never going to be able to go on the gas early. So Lelis gets the better exit, but this time he has to stick back, because as soon as he goes on the gas, his front just pushes to the up, and pushes to the outside, of course, and he's going to wreck into Kolibal, so he has to be careful of that as well. And that brings Lindqvist back into play.
Lindqvist back into play as well as they work themselves down towards turn number 3. 37 laps and the scored complete at the line. It is still Schittrich from Chirac, from Lelis, from Colliball. In fact, no, that's not right, because Colliball's going to get himself back past ahead of Lelis. but still we are working ourselves 37 laps full complete. Your retirees from this race, still very limited. Lavender Dantas is out of the race, but everyone else is still running. You've got Laura Bond, of course, who's in that accident earlier, as was Ellie Rocha, was back onto the racetrack. And this is phenomenal. After the drop-off rate we had earlier on, the rate of people carrying on today in this race, even with damage, is phenomenal. And we still got at least 21 clean drivers on this racetrack. Clean, I mean. In fact, they have no damage.
Yeah, and Rodriguez will let us retaking that position from Martin Collable. He's going to run on wide surely unless Collable's just been really slow, which is the case. Now Collable's under serious pressure from Sebastian Lindqvist. This is a great battle between 3rd and 6th position. Those 4 guys having a right good go at each other and keeping it nice and clean, which is great to see. Lindqvist gets the move done on Martin Collable, and Collable will not get the speed. He's obviously struggling with tyres or something. He's dropping back like a stone, and now Ellis Stevens right on the back of him. He needs to be careful because Christian Pico is right on the back of him. So, you know, it's now become a 5-car battle thanks to the slow pace at the moment of Martin Collable.
Indeed, so they still battling really on the racetrack, and I tell you what, Ellis Stevens in the thick of that action as well, leading the club UK and I charge after clubmate Swilinski, who was running well at the start of this race, had that contact with the wall, but here comes Pietro down to the inside, the 23 car over the 11, and it looks as though the 23 car is going to get that job done, but still Lindqvist now is going to need to get himself past Lelis then turn 2, you saw it on the screen at the same time. So great racing now in the top 10, and I think that some of these drivers, I talked about this on the pit stops, maybe making a couple of changes. Some of them, it's really working out for them now, Mario.
Yeah, it really could be. I mean, it isn't really so bad that Martin Collable is sticking to the behind of this now, because obviously he's got a clear view on the battle, and it looks like these guys are fast enough to break away from Stevens and Puko. But it's never going to be able. It's never going to be easy for a driver to be able to just stick to his position. I mean, you're always looking to get the positions, and you're always looking to race a position ahead. So yeah, maybe now he's got the chance now, but he's not really getting the run, and it's going to be more difficult the more cars join this pack. And by the looks of it, Stevens and Puko try to join that. That's for sure.
And I think the fact that these guys have been battling, as a caution is out, we've got a crash on the racetrack, and it's our 3rd caution of the day.
And Nocera slams into it. Nocera slams into it.
And Teppo Remers there was the driver who was involved in that incident down at turn number 2. Just came down a little bit there on Thomas Kroll, the Finnish driver and the DH driver, and just turned down a little bit early. Didn't realise that Thomas Kroll was running in the 2nd lane. And it was the driver just spun around there, the 127 car of Remez, and I think the DH driver came out without too much damage, if any at all, under our 3rd caution of the day here. And wow, it's all changed once again.
Yeah, and now, I mean, we've been talking about strategy. I'm pretty sure that everyone's going to come into pits now. You say
fuel reasons. It will
exactly.
happen for fuel reasons.
Tires.
Now, you'll come in, you'll take your right side tyres at the very least, you'll be good to go to the end. Most people will probably try and take 4 tyres, it will still be a long run to the end, but in the time that you're changing tyres, put in 2 gallons of fuel, there you are, you're good to go to the end of the race.
Exactly, and you say it, 2 side tyres, I mean, you're basically only taking the right side tyre, front right, rear right, to those who haven't actually watched NASCAR before. It could be a choice to gain a good set of positions here, but, well, this track being relatively heavy on the front right tyre, I don't think it will benefit you a few laps in. I mean, you're running on good tyres into the start of the race, but you're going to be tossed down the positions relatively quickly, that's for sure. So I'm not sure if that's the right choice. You said it, 4 tyres plus fuel. I'm pretty sure that's what we go with. We will have 25 laps to go as we go green, so no real issue with fuel there. And yeah, I mean, just take 4 tyres for safety. You're not really looking to get a hasty pit stop in towards the end, just looking towards the points, get the safe thing done, conservative strategy, drive to the end, 4 tyres, done.
And I will talk about the driver scored 1 lap down as well. Adam Smolenski scored 1 lap down. Of course, he had a great one early, but he decided that he was going to basically have contact with the wall and fell a lap down. He came in the last pit stop, and I'm noticing here that no one's come on pit road yet. I don't think the pits are open as we speak, but I do see Ellis Stevens come on to pit road. Now, this is very interesting. That Ellis Stevens on pit road, I don't see many drivers on pit road. The Iberian drivers are coming on pit road, but the top drivers are staying out. Now, we talk about fuel saving. These guys will probably be good to go-ish to the end of this race now. They'll be right there on the limit. But people like Ellis Stevens are going to have great tyres for the second half of this last run, but they're going to be right at the rear of the pack. So different strategies going on here. And I've got a feeling for the top 5 drivers, they're worried that if they come on pit road, that the opposing clubs will then try and stay out deliberately to pin them towards the rear of the field. And fresh tyres only do so much, John.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And Frank Skitterick will be crying at the moment. What does he need to do? Every time he gets into the lead ahead of Marcus Urack, a caution seems to come out, and he loses his entire lead, and then gets passed in the pit stops. So, but these guys, of course, not taking pit stops, as we're saying. It's a very interesting change of strategy here. You know, maybe these guys are going to come in this lap, but that would be a really stupid thing to do because they would have come in last. So that's pretty much not going to happen. I'm intrigued. It's a very difficult one to call. Sitting here watching on, trying to put myself in their position, it's a difficult one to call. You stay out, you have worse tyres, and you're a bit dodgy on fuel, but you have track position. Or you come in, you're on fresher tyres than everyone else for the majority of the race, except you're going to use them all up trying to pass 20 cars, and also being involved in the middle of the pack is going to be more prone to crashes and damage. So it's a very risky strategy and a very difficult decision, but these guys have been forced to make one. Let's see how it works out in the end.
And let's be honest, as previous World Cups have shown, you're not going to go green to the end from here, are you, Marius?
Exactly, and we're only talking about theoretical possibilities here. I mean, theoretically, if it stays green, you will be close on fuel, but statistics show us that theoretically only go so far until the percentages of wrecks come in. So we're likely seeing, I mean, 80-20. I mean, guys, it's really hard to make up values here, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be another yellow, at least at the point towards the end of the race when there's really heat going on. You're really looking to get 1 or 2 positions in a haste. So at least then we'll see a caution. And no matter when we see it, the last 2, maybe 3 laps are going to be the ones who are critical, So even if a caution comes out, then you'll be able to coast until the finish. If it comes out earlier, fine, just go in, take tires, take fuel, you'll be fine. This is going to bring the guys into trouble who went in now, took tires, took fuel, and now are hoping to drive to the end, that it stays green, because as soon as the yellow comes out, these guys will have trouble, and the guys who stood out will be in the advantage.
It can't be an over-broadcast without me mentioning her name, so for some of these drivers are trying to do the Danica Patrick syndrome, of course, her one and only IndyCar victory back in 2008 at Twin Motegi. Pure strategic victory. Herself and Elio Castroneves played the fuel mileage and it worked for them. And I think some of these guys realise that they haven't got the pure pace to really get it to the end and get themselves a top 5 position. So they are thinking outside the box, John. And that's one of the fascinating bits of oval racing. It's not just the fastest guy turning laps. Sometimes it is the guy who's got the most strategic mind, is willing to take those risks and go off sequence.
And that's what all NASCAR fans will say in an argument against road racing and which one's best. You know, there's many pros and cons to both, but with the oval racing, that's definitely one of the main pros, is the change of strategy is so important. And as a driver, I find it incredibly exciting trying to decide which will be best. And if it doesn't pay off, it doesn't pay off. But if it does, it can be the most rewarding kind of victory if you know that you've earned it by thinking outside the box. Even if you didn't have the pace to win, you still have the strategy to do the job for you. And it also gives a bit of a chance to the drivers who maybe aren't as fast, whereas in a road race, if you don't have the pace, I'm afraid you've not got much chance of winning. Whereas in an oval, if you don't have the pace, you muck around with the strategy a little bit and try and find something that everyone else isn't doing. It can lead, you know, to better results. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out. I do still think Frank Skitterick is the favourite, but I mean, I'm trying to find the highest up driver that pulled into the pits. I'm not quite sure, but I think it might be Ellis Stevens, if I'm not correct, if I'm wrong.
Yeah, could be. I mean, he dropped a lot of positions, so he could be that one. But he's already in 12, so not that far
a
down.
lot of people at the rear of the field came in, and that's one of those things that you can have as well. If you're the first one to come in and everyone behind you comes in, you get a huge advantage. Don't forget, we're not even halfway through today's coverage of the 2013 World Cup of iRacing. We'll go off air after this race and we'll come back on at 6 p.m. GMT for the second of today's road races at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Paz with the Ford GTs and the Group 1 drivers before we have the oval race going off, which will be the championship decider at 8 p.m. GMT. All of it live exclusively here on the Glacier GlacierTV. And your top 5, it is Diac from Finland. They are your top 3 drivers. Then Brazil, then Club Finland. Diac are looking strong here, Marius. However, it didn't go their way at points in the road race earlier.
Yeah, and it's far from over, is it? I mean, Brazil is not exactly out of the contention, even though that Murilo Augusto, as the leading Brazilian driver, is only 9th. But we're talking about the mass of the points, and that's why in the road, without any big scoring result, UK and I took the lead in this, so no problem for them. However, now UK and I kind of look like 2 mid-packish, and both Finland and Diac got lots of drivers in the front of the pack. But first of all, we must take a look at the restart right now. Diac first row, Finland and Great Britain second row, and then it's Diac and Finland again. So it looks like really it is between these 2 clubs. We'll take a look at how the restart goes, and we'll talk again in 25 laps.
Indeed. So Diac, Finland, Brazil, Diac. Here we go. Back to green flag racing with 44 laps scored complete. Green flag back in the air here at Pocono as they all storm themselves back down towards turn number 1. Is there going to be a turn 1 incident? I don't think so. Everyone is pretty much single file for the most part, but Shiverish gets a good start. Chirac right there behind him. Lelis there trying to look down to the inside. Oh, sorry, that's Lindquist there trying to look down to the inside of Lelis. He got a great run into turn 1. Wasn't able to do anything with it, and now here comes Honeyball on the attack, looking to try and take 4th position away as they come down into the tunnel turn. But that really shows these restarts. You've got to be careful, because if you get yourselves into the wrong place at the wrong time, you'll be losing position, and they'll stay too wide as they come down into turn number 3. On the inside, the 6th car of Honeyball. On the outside, Sebastian Lindquist in the number 88 car, and it looks like if Lindquist can get on the gas, he should just be able to get that 4th position going, but Honeyball will not give up without a fight, and now Lindquist finally gets himself clear.
Yeah, Lindquist has been all over the place at the start of this restart. Going into turn 1, he was a long way down the inside, almost made contact with Rodrigo Lelis in front, managed to keep it together, and then ended up on the outside line for the rest of the lap. So he really is a bit scrappy in the restart. He's managed to hold his 4th position, regain his composure, and now bring the fight back to Brazilian Rodrigo Lelis and the 2 Diac drivers of Marcus Chirac, and the ever checking out, it seems to be, you know, not for the first time. But is that a caution again?
4th caution of the day. 4th caution of the day here at Pocono, and we'll get confirmation of who that is. And there's a big crash there. Steve Greenwood and Adam Smolinski, so 2 UK and I drivers involved in that incident, and that all started with Greenwood just losing the rear end of that car down into turn number 1, and then collecting his own teammate. The worst thing you can ever have happen to you. Greenwood upside down. Smolinski's car is not driving at all, and it has not gone well all of a sudden for clubs UK and I, who came into this race with the points lead. All of a sudden, things are going wrong for them, Marius.
Yeah, and that's the absolute mayhem. You said it. The worst thing that can happen. Laura Bond also involved in that wreck, just barely avoiding the flipping Steve Greenwood. And I mean, 3 UK and I guys affected, and there's not really been any contact to cause this incident. So Steve Greenwood completely spinning on his own, Adam Chmielewski not able to avoid the wreck, and as well as Laura Bond just hitting the wreck and the flipping car rather than Steve Greenwood was just flipping in front of her. So really just mayhem for UK and I, and they've done a good job at collecting points in the road race, but it looks like 2 of their drivers are out now in 23rd and 21st, and likely are going to be tossed down further to the grid, further to the bottom of the grid. So it's not going to get them a whole lot of points out of this.
And with 22 laps to go, that strategy thing we were talking about earlier really does come into play for those top drivers. You don't expect them to try and do the end of this race on no more pit stops. However, there is a chance that they might try, and as I said earlier on, John, you always get in a team club championship like this that other people deliberately try and pin you using strategy, pin you to the rear of the field by not pitting, and it's very easy to come back if it's only 3 or 4 drivers. 20 drivers, a lot more difficult.
Yeah, and when you pull into the pits, it's a risk you've got, you know, it's a risk that you've either got to take or you don't. It's a decision that has to be made. And as you were saying earlier, if you pit in and you're followed in by all the guys behind, you're going to be absolutely fine because you'll be in the same position as you were effectively with fresh tyres and proper amount of fuel. But you know, also that if they don't pull in behind you and you end up at the back of the grid, you could see, as you were saying, the rival clubs deliberately packing their drivers in the positions mid-pack to try and hold up the fastest guys as much as possible and prevent them from making their way up through the field. And eventually, even if they do make their way up through the field, they're going to be so far off the lead of the race, they're not going to be taking advantage of it. So it's an interesting strategical call, and let's see if anyone's brave enough to try something like that.
Well, we've got a barbecue on pit road right now, and that is Steve Greenwood's car. Laura Bond's on pit road to repair her damage a little bit more, as is Shamlensky on pit road. And also you have Eli Rocker on pit road as well. But for the most part, everyone stays out, Marius. So it's something, if everyone's on old tyres, it's not going to be that much of a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it doesn't really make difference now if you haven't pitted 2 laps ago. I mean, they only did 1.5 laps on green, so the tires won't be worn that much, and they'll cool down again during the caution, so no real problem there. And, well, what we've talked earlier about, it doesn't really change, does it? I mean, we've been talking about there's going to be one more yellow. Okay, it probably wouldn't come 1.5 laps after we've talked about it, commentator's curse, but there's definitely going to be another yellow. I mean, this doesn't change our statistics much,
I disagree. There'll be no more yellow.
Oh, yeah, right. No more yellow. We're going to go green here.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. There we are. And, yeah, I have to say, Brazil have kind of been a little bit better in this race, but they've struggled a little bit in this race as well. But I think the big losers are Club UK and I. But Club Iberia, they really have been struggling in this race as well. I do think right now we are looking, as it always is in years gone by, with, at least in this, Club Finland and Club Diaz. But, Marius, this only accounts, of course, for 35% of all the points. Anything can still change over the course of the next 5 hours.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and anything can still change in the course of this race, starting to begin with. I mean, we've got Finland against the edge on the front, but we've seen how quickly that can change, and even if strategy comes into play, could just toss everything over, could it? I mean, currently Schichterich, Girac and Kolibal, 1st, 2nd and 5th. Then we've got Lindqvist, Puko and Tianen, who are 4th, 6th and 7th, so they won't really change much in points. The good thing these two clubs have is what I want to talk about. They've really got the mass of good drivers in both divisions. Both clubs have got a mass of good drivers, 5 or 6 drivers who've all got the ability to run into the top 10 here. So they are going to already push most of the other clubs' drivers out. We've only got Lelis in the top 10, we've got Morilla Augusto, and we've got Andres Quintana in 11. So 3 drivers who are not DH or Finland in the top 11. And I'm sorry, but you have to get a good chunk of points out of the top as well. It was enough for UK and I on road, taking mid-range points, but over the long run, just getting mid-range points, mid-pack points, won't really get the thing won for you.
49 laps and we score complete at the line. 20 laps left to go when we go back to green flag racing. And John, we talk about it every single time. Schichterich isn't able to pull out the advantage, but he has got track position where he wants it right now. And of course, he was able to hold off Girac over the last cautions, and it does look as though that all of a sudden that 50 car is just where he wants to be. 20 laps to go, race in hand, enough fuel to go to the end, and it's fair to say, over the long run, that car was really good.
Yeah, I think Frank is definitely, at the moment, everyone's favourite for this race. He's been the fastest throughout, he's been the most consistent, he hasn't made any mistakes. The only mistakes he's made are maybe slightly slow pit stops, slower than he could have. And it's cost him to Marcus Girac, but of course now, no more pit stops in this race required. He won't have to go through that again, and if he can get a decent enough start and just maintain his position for the first lap, I think we'll see him once again pull away from the field. And if he can stay, this race can stay in the green flag, and Frank doesn't get taken out by any back markers or make a mistake, I'm fairly confident he'll be able to wrap this one up for Diaz.
And there will be 9, and I have to say as well, Marius, that if there is that final caution, that is when we're going to see crazy stuff happen. If we go green for at least 10 laps, that final caution is going to be incredibly interesting. And look at this as well. Rodrigo Ledias right on the rear now of Frank Schichterich. And Rodrigo wants to try and get to the inside of Girac into turn 1. Of course, he was close last time, not quite close enough. And I think that he wants to start mixing it up with the Diaz drivers.
Yeah, he could be. I mean, now is the time, really. you said it's going to be tricky, of course, towards the end of the race with the caution. But I think the trickiest thing that could happen is if we see another caution, let's say in about 5 or 6 laps of time, because now we're talking about, okay, this doesn't change much because the caution came right out, but if the guys drive 5 laps now, the caution comes out and it leaves us with about 10, 12 laps maybe until green, it's gonna change a whole lot, because then you really have to make the decision between, am I gonna stay out, am I gonna make it on fuel, or do I have to bring the car down, because at some point the tires won't just recover from that anymore. So you're gonna need new tires, because otherwise, if it really stays green, you're not gonna be able to defend in the last couple of laps. So the question really is, at the next yellow, whenever it comes, do I pit in, obviously take tires and a bit of fuel, or do I stay out and just risk it? And I'm pretty sure, talking about conservative race strategy, all of these guys will just go conservative and take the pit stop, take it safe, and don't risk a DNF on fuel, because that might be overkill.
We do have unofficial, and I have to say unofficial, point standings for the time being. And it does look as though that DH are 241 points, Finland 221, UK and I 194, Iberia 136, and Club Brazil 134. So it will be interesting to pay in mind how that will go as these last couple of laps progress. Of course, those points, let's not forget, are unofficial. We'll confirm them a little bit later on, but green flag back in the air here at Pocono. 20 laps to go as the cars come back down into turn number 1. And I tell you what, Lilos did not get the start he wanted there. Lindqvist very close, and also look at that Girac to the point, and also Lindqvist looks as though that perhaps he was going to try and look to the outside, wasn't close enough, and
yellow.
the caution is back out.
Once again, right at the start this time, and it looks like Carlos Arno Ross is involved, but he's only run into the back of some drivers. John Jenkins too involved, and that's where the caution happened. John Jenkins too and Slatko Knežević involved. Knežević seems to have saved the car, but it sends John Jenkins to right into the wall, suffering a lot of damage to the right side of his car.
And also Laura Bond was flipped upside down as well, so you talk about how bad Club UK and I's day's gone, it's gone very bad. But
you think it wouldn't go worse? I mean,
I don't think it can go much worse anymore. After what they did on the roadside, it's just not happened on the road course. However, Girac was able to get the jump there, and Lindqvist was looking very strong on that restart. He's going to restart third here, and I think what a little bit of mind games came into play there, because Shitrich didn't get going immediately, let us sell back, but then I think that Girac spent so much time messing about the driver behind that Girac was able to just go past, bump on the outside down into turn number 1.
Well, it's a bit of a surprise, really. I mean, he's already getting the restarts right on, but he's really getting them right on. I mean, I have to say, it's not really that easy, especially if the leader sets the tone here. But on the outside, I mean, he's just been able to get the first place out of turn 1 here, and well, John, it's going to be a question of strategy. Girac leading, Schichterich second, and the guys behind pretty much doing the exact same thing as the leaders. What do you think? Pit stops this lap by. Who's going to come in? Who's going to stay out?
I think, to be honest, the only people who gain an advantage from coming in at this late stage is the guys towards the back of the field. I'm not going to say right at the back, because with fresh tyres, it's going to, well, especially as fresh as this, it'll be 20 odd laps fresher than the guys who are staying out. So if you do come in, you're going to have a big advantage, but it's whether you want to sacrifice the track position with so few laps to go. I think the fact that Girac got past Frank Schichterich at the start there has thrown an extra bit of salt into the pan for this race. But it's just not going the way of UK and Ireland at all at the moment. It seems like the road form has just been lost, and they've been having incidents with each other. It seems like every single incident involving one somehow picks up another UK and Ireland car in it, so they've had a bit of a nightmare, and it is a beautiful race so far for DH. These guys, Girac and Schichterich, have been dominating the entire event. I don't think they've lost first and second almost throughout the entire races. I mean, he almost got passed by the Brazilian earlier on. I'm trying to remember who that was, who was battling up there before getting damage. I can remember right now, but apart from that, those guys have been absolutely dominant, and it's whether Schichterich can get back past Marcus Girac within the next few laps of the green flag, which I do believe he will.
Yeah, and it was Murilo Augusto, the driver for the Club Brazil, fighting heavily with the two DH guys, and yeah, by the looks of it, he was really the only one being able to do anything about their dominance, really. So, I mean, Lindqvist and Lallis, Pico, also Kolibal, they're not really far out of contention, but they're not really that bit quicker to get to them, to get past them to even follow them. I mean, as soon as these guys were running into the restart, they've been nailing the restart, and from then on they've been just breaking away.
Yeah, well, the lights remain on the pace car, so we will have one more lap under yellow before going green. It's going to be, although Marcus Jurák leads at the moment, as we've been saying throughout the thing, it is difficult to bet against Frank Skatervik through his dominance. And you've got Adam Chmielewski almost, is he 2 laps down now, I believe? Oh, he's 5 laps down, so he's obviously been in the pits a long time with damage repairs. But Lindqvist is the guy in third. He's been quite erratic at times, but when I say erratic, I mean his lines, not necessarily his driving in terms of overtaking and stuff. That's been brilliant, but it's going to be interesting to see if he can mount a challenge to the guys in front. He's been quick throughout. Just looking at his lap times, his fastest lap in the race has been a 53.9 compared to Skatervik's 53.4 near the start, and Jurák, fastest lap was 53.7, so he's not too far off in ultimate pace, and he might be able to cause a threat, especially if the front 2 guys start battling early on.
Yeah, and the interesting bit is, I mean, if 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, we've been talking about what's going to happen in the next couple of laps with cautions. And we thought, alright, there might be 1, there might be 2. We've already had these 2 cautions now, and it changes quite a lot. So, I don't know, Will, do you think there's really going to be a caution fest right now? I mean, we just went green into turn 1, 15 seconds green, boom, caution out. Is it going to continue like that, or will we see a couple of laps of green flag racing?
I think it's going to be green flag till the end, but I'm not going to put too much on it because, of course, we said that last time and ended up with another caution coming out. And they're just about to cross the line for the safety car. Hopefully the lights will go out in the safety car. We're about to find out as they now head towards the line. We are, of course, on lap 54, just about to head on to now. And yeah, that is the start of lap 54. And the lights still on the pace car at the moment. We're going to cross the line. Let's see if they go out. But I believe it should be 1 to green just now.
They're still on. So they're going to go for another lap of pacing him. Long caution period here, Martin. That's only going to make people a little bit more frisky when they get back to green. Yes? No? Oh, no.
We've got Katie Scott with us. Katie, bit of an interesting race for UK and I, really. Bit of a devastating race, rather. And it must be hard to see as a member of UK and I for you, but also as the organizing head of this event. So we've seen a lot of crashes in the last couple of laps. What do you think? Will we really take a few laps of green, or will it just stay yellow all the way throughout the end?
I think usually these things do go yellow, green. You know, you usually do get a couple of yellows. Then once you've got through a couple of laps, it'll go green. We've just had bad luck though, haven't we? You know, none of our guys have driven badly. You know, that last crash, someone turned John round. He didn't do anything wrong, and we just had that bad luck. But I don't think necessarily bad racing. It's just racing incidents, and we've just been unfortunate that we've been in the middle of them.
Of course. No, my turn. Thank you.
You've had your turn.
No,
Okay,
no,
go
no,
ahead.
no, 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 no. There we are. So with the way it's been, you said to me earlier on that it really was the Group BC finals where you're hoping to get the momentum. Now it's all kind of not gone UK and I's plan on the oval side of the BC finals. Does that change what you think you have to do in the latter finals, on the Group A finals a little bit later on?
I think the policy was right, and if you can stick to that policy, we've still got a chance, because, you know, the only reason it hasn't worked this time is that we unfortunately got caught up in other people's accidents, or, you know, one of our guys did get a spin on it on his own, didn't he, and got collected, which is a bit unfortunate. But I think the policy's right, but we perhaps do need to look into the next race and just try and push ourselves up a little bit further and try and, you know, be a little bit, I won't say aggressive, but, you know, don't just sit back. We might have to take a few risks. You know, if there's a half pass on, we might have to take that half pass rather than those extra points could be quite important.
Well, cheers, KDO. We are on 1 to go, finally. So, your top 10 is Gierek from Shitowicz, from Lindqvist, Leas, from Bierko, from Kolibol, Augusto, Chenin, Kroll, and then Vrema rounds out your top 10. And actually, without me really realising, you now have another Finnish driver in the top 10, and then you have an Iberian driver now up into the 11th place. So Iberia aren't out of it completely just yet, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we see UK and I from the roadside just by collecting points, taking the lead over this tournament early on. And yeah, all Iberia can do from this is just collect points. They're hoping for mistakes from the leaders here, and just as we see on road, Martin Kolibal, for example, is racing oval as well. He's in 6th now. He's been outside the top 10 at the middle part of the race on road, and he's finished, I believe, 7th, 8th. So he's been gifted 3 or 4 positions just by other people failing, crashing, disconnecting. So many things can happen at 15 laps to go here. You're never out of this race, and even at collecting points, you're never out of this tournament.
Indeed, you are never out of the tournament until the final lap, and we saw that, of course, in the last 15-20 laps of last year's Road Cup finals. Until that checkered flag flies, anything can happen. 55 laps going to be in the books any moment now. Giro from Chitowicz, from Lindqvist, from Leas from Pierco. Leo, your top 5. Can Lindqvist get a restart like last time? Who's going to find out? Green flag up in the air. And I tell you what, Lelis is the one there who gets the good start, and perhaps he's going to try and take that 3rd place away. They're going to be too wide, too deep as they come down into turn number 1. Who's going to make it happen? Almost a gap closed there on the 357 car. But Lindqvist, again, a very good start, and he's really good in turn number 1. But however, wasn't able to get on the gas when he wanted to, and that allows Lelis to go to the outside of Lindqvist as they come down into turn number 2, and Lelis will get the pass there in that 357 car, moving Club Brazil up into 3rd place in the race.
Yeah, Frank Skaterick, much status quo there, but a great start, Marcus Girac. And it looked for a second like Lindqvist was going for 2nd place in the first corner, but got bogged down directly behind Frank Skaterick, and that allowed the 3rd place man Rodrigo Lelis to get the run on Sebastian and go around the outside into 3rd. But that's the top 4 at the moment. Christian Pickles holds on to the 5th position with Kolibal in 6th. Petri Tianen is in 7th with Augusto in 8th.
And Marius, Girac and Chitowicz were able to get a good restart there, but Lelis is looking strong all of a sudden. But down on that inside line, he just cannot get that car to work as Lelis, and Lindqvist's car is working beautifully. Did I just see a tap there from Girac on the wall coming out of turn 1? I did see a tap. That was a tap on the wall there by the 44 car, Marcus Girac.
Let's just see how bad that really affects the DH driver here, currently leading the race. If a little tap will be enough to toss him down the grid. We've seen that early on with Murilo Augusto well, and he's recovered nicely from this. Currently attacking the 7th place Petro Tianen, trying to make it stick through 3 here, and a lot of battle going on here, in fact, for place 1, for place 3, 7, all the way across the grid. It looks like everybody's just got more and more racy.
And they've got more and more racy indeed. And I tell you what, Augusto's looking down to the inside of Tianen as they come down into turn number 1. Will he be able to get the job done? He's going to dive it in low. However, he's not able to get it. And look at how he pushed the 21 car up there, the racetrack. Tianen, a good heads-up driver to avoid an incident there. It does look as though Tianen is going to stay side by side as Augusto really try and dive that car into turn number 1. Wasn't able to do so though, Monroe, and almost caused a 2-car incident there.
Yeah, just managed to avoid
Oh
it.
no, they've been 2-car incident, both the cars, they're spinning, will they keep it off the racetrack? And I tell you
no
what,
caution yet.
We stay green, Augusto sliding all over the place, and Tianen is on the grass. While they're on the grass, a caution will not come out. And I tell you what, Augusto's got to get that car pointing in a straight line. He's onto the track, but substantial damage to Augusto there. Tianen is very slow as well in the 21 car. Let's see if he brings it on pit road. That car is not handling very well, but he stays out on the racetrack. Augusto will have to bring that car onto pit road, and what happened in turn 1 happened again slightly in turn 2. Augusto tried to run it very low, caught the curb, and that just spotted the car back into the racing groove and caused that incident there with Petri Tianen.
Massive credit to the drivers there for keeping it all together and keeping the caution-free race. Of course, it would advantage them having the caution because they have time to catch up, but great to see they're trying to keep this race in the green flag position, so massive respect to those guys. And Girac doesn't look like he's got too much damage. He's holding on to the lead at the moment. I was just keeping an eye on this battle between the front 2, and Skaterick isn't making as much progress as I would have thought, especially after Marcus hit the wall just a few laps ago.
Again, you can never have this race decided until the end of the race. So P3 battle is carrying on. Lelis and Lindqvist, and they have been battling all race long. Lindqvist on the outside does seem to be pretty good, but he does look as though he's going to allow Lelis for the time being that inside line, which is going to try the cut under. But we've also got the battle for a race lead as well between Chitowicz and Girac. And Shitrich is all over rear Zurich. Not going to get past, and Zurich's damage doesn't look as though it's too bad for him, Marius.
Yeah, the good thing for them, I mean, they will just laughing, they will be happy at the moment, because the guys behind them, they just can't get a decision for who is going to take which position. It's 2 times Finland against once Brazil, and they just can't get it done. I mean, Lindqvist keeps attacking Lelis, Lelis keeps defending from Lindqvist, and they're never going to get it done as the switch in the lead happens. They've wrecked, Lindqvist spins Lelis off of 3.
Oh, and the 2 cars there come together out of turn number 3. And it looks like Lindqvist was running on that curb right there in that battle for the P4 position. Then the 2 come together coming out of turn number 4. Looks like Lindqvist was expecting the Brazil driver to move up the racetrack more. That didn't happen. The 2 came together, spinning around, and they are both. And in fact, Lindqvist spins it on pit road. That reminds me of the ISOWC race we had here with Randy Cosmo and Monica Clara Brand. But Lindqvist is on pit road, and he's going to try and get some repairs, but he is now from 4th place all the way down the order. And we said there'd be one more caution. There is one more caution.
And it's going to help the UK and Ireland guys quite a lot, because a lot of the rival clubs there having issues, and that's a real shame, because those 2 guys, a fantastic battle going on for 3rd. They've been clean yet exciting throughout the whole race, have Sebastian Lindqvist, but yeah, that incident, I haven't seen a replay myself, but it's such a shame. They must have just been pushing too hard late on in the race. There's, of course, hardly any laps to go, but you've seen a replay of what's happened. It's just a real shame that it had to happen so late on after such a good effort so far in this race.
And those 2 have been battling really well up until that point. And it's one of those incidents, Marius, where you always expect people to do certain things. And I think that's what the issue was, is Lindqvist, I think, expected the Brazil driver to move up the racetrack a little bit more coming up the corner, because that's where the grooves naturally work here. But, again, you don't have to move up the racetrack. You can stay wherever you are, and as long as you don't turn that wheel to the left coming out the corner, it's no real far. It's one of those things, again, as Girac is coming onto pit road.
Yeah, and that's going to be fuel, surely.
No, he's dominating as he did earlier.
Whoa, he's even tricked us. Good job, Marcus. No, but if anyone turns down into pit road now, it's always going to be due to fuel. And coming back to that incident, I mean, it's a bit of fault to both drivers, but we've been taking a look at the replay a couple of times now, and it really looks like Rodrigo Lelis is exiting that turn incredibly low. I mean, you would do so if you're 3 wide, for example, if you're holding the middle line, or that even goes as an inside line. And I mean, you're basically leaving the car inside, no gap. Sebastian Lindqvist can't really go anywhere. He's already committed to the turn, he's already committed to the move, and they're both digging their own grave, really. I mean, Sebastian can't really see that happening, but come on, really? I mean, you can do that if it's a race for your own, if it's a race for your own championship, but you're always going to hurt your club. And I'm pretty sure whoever's club president there, I believe you're club president for Club Finland, and that's not really made you angry, but that's not really made you pleasant, sorry, but it's also not going to make Club Brazil very pleasant, because they're just giving away free points. I mean, come on, guys.
Especially this late into a race as well, because what you essentially now have is two DX drivers out front. Then you've got a Finnish driver, a DX driver, another DX driver, and that is your top 5. So from what was a bad race of DX early on, and let's not forget, their star driver out before turn 1 even in the road race, John, does look as though they come back with great form here.
I'm actually scared to see how many points DX are going to score in this, because it's going to be a ridiculous amount of points. It's quite frightening, because they're sitting in 1st, 2nd, 4th and 5th, as we've said, and that is a very commanding position to be in, and it will obviously put them on the front foot heading into the Group A races. But we are, of course, still not even at the end of this race, therefore we are still not halfway through the World Cup finals. And you know, once you get to halfway, no matter how many points you are ahead, when you're at the halfway distance, however many points you've scored on the way ahead, anyone else can score on the way back. So it's never over until you're so far ahead that mathematically impossible for the guys behind to do anything. But this is going to do DH no displeasure whatsoever.
So here we go then, and the lights are still on the iRacing First Safety Pace Car. I just made up a new name for that, the iRacing.com First Pace Car, and we're going to go back to green flag racing with, what, 6 laps to go in this race, so another caution will pretty much end it. And for some of these drivers, it all comes back to the thing that we talked about in the road race over and over and over and over again. Finish the bleeding race.
So, bringing
No,
it...
you don't want to comment on me? No.
I was just about to do that. Please let me. 1.5 hours into this race, and if we're already tired, then what's gonna happen to the drivers? I mean, if it really comes down to a battle for the lead, Christian Pico, pretty much the underdog. He's only been running about place 5 without really doing anything wrong. So Martin Kolibal in 4th now, Thomas Kroll in 5th. These will be the drivers trying to get another position out of this. Ellis Stevens in 6th. He's been one of the drivers who pitted at the first caution which came out, if you remember. That's 4 cautions ago, I believe. So he's also going to be the one who's a bit critical on fuel. But by the looks of it, I mean, we've had 3 cautions ever since, so no one's really going to run low on fuel. And I bet by now they will have made the calculations to make it stick. However, we've got 4 or 5 laps to go if we go green. Lights on the first pace car still on, the iRacing first official pace car, whatever name Will just gave to that. Still roaming the track in front of the 2 DH drivers. Then we've got Finland twice, DH again. Then we've got UK and I, Brazil, Finland, Brazil and Finland again. So however it looks, 1 Finland out, 1 Brazil out. They are still scoring points, do not forget that. There's no rule against scoring points outside the top 10. We've got a linear points scheme, starting with 30 points for the winner, going down all the way to 1 point for place 29. And however, whatever you do, always consider you're taking home points.
Indeed. I think we can all agree on that one. Even Marius and I can agree on that one.
Perfect.
The lights are now off on the pace car, so back to 2 wide, X number deep, as we will have about 6 laps left to go as this race goes back to green. John, what do you do if you're someone, you know, in the top 10? Do you try and push to get that extra position, or do you now just try and go on the ultra caution?
I think it depends which club you're in, to be honest. If you're in DH at the moment, you're seeing your front guys, you know, you've got 4 cars in the top 5, you're going to sit there and you're going to finish the race. You're not going to try pushing up too hard because it'll just end up with you know, getting into fights with the DH drivers. You just sit back, don't take any undue risks and bring the car home for club and country. Whereas if you're a guy like someone in the UK and Ireland or Brazil team, or even, you can say at the moment actually, any of the other 4 teams that aren't DH, you're going to want to be getting as many positions as possible off the other clubs because every point counts.
And the cars work themselves down the second straightaway towards the tunnel turn. Yes, it is modelled after turn 3, I believe, of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then, of course, that short run down into turn number 3 as well. We have seen plenty of good racing here at Pocono. However, of course, we always judge a race by how many cautions there's been, and there have been a couple in this race here today. Don't forget, at 6 PM GMT, our coverage will resume with the A Group Road Final, and then at 8 PM, we'll have Group A Oval Finals here as well, as we continue the journey to crown the 2013 World Cup of iRacing champions. Last year, it was Club Finland. The 3 years before that, it was Club DH. Right now, it looks as though it's those 2 teams battling once again. DH versus Finland, but, of course, you might want to try and get as many points as you can here in the last 6 laps. Here comes the pace car back onto pit road. Here comes the drivers, and the green flag back in the end. I tell you what, a great start there by the 2 DH drivers. And Christian Pico was a little bit sluggish there. And look at this, you might almost get free wide into turn 1. Thomas Kroll, Martin Connenbold are hunting down that lowly finished driver in the top 5 right now, John.
Yep, and the front 2 guys obviously got a great start. I do believe they've done that every single time. They must have been in the same TeamSpeak channel, unless they're just psychic or something. But yeah, it's the 2 DH guys. It still remains the order with Christian Pico holding the flag up for Finland in 3rd in this DH sandwich, with Kolibal in 4th and Thomas Kroll in 5th position. Ellis Stevens is the best of the rest for UK and Ireland in 6th.
Yellow's
out.
out.
Solid run.
Caution. And
Well, that's the big one. That's the big one. Actually, cars flying, guys.
And we are not at the end. There might be a 1-lap shootout, but cars involved. John Jenkins is involved in that caution. We also have Rob Russ, Petru Taino, Sebastian Lindqvist as well. So 2 Club UK and I drivers and 2 Club Finland drivers. You'll get the replay up on your screen in just a moment, because this one is one which looked, I mean, let's be honest, it started off with them being 4 wide as they worked themselves down into turn number 2, and it always goes a little bit downhill from there. But we'll get to say a full replay up on your screen momentarily, and it all started with, again, Lilius there, down on the inside of Petri Tainen, down to the inside of the corner, and I'm going to have to try and be objective when I say this. It really does look as though that Lilius just tried to stuck that car down into a gap that really didn't exist properly there.
Yeah, and I'm pretty shocked at that. I mean, I never want to say this was on purpose, but it sure as hell looks like it's an absolutely unnecessary maneuver. I mean, even if it wasn't on purpose, this was just absolutely called for. I mean, you can't seriously think you're gonna make it through that gap and then make it stick. I mean, even if he makes it through the gap, he's just gonna end up straight in the wall. So that's, I mean, that's my acknowledge my feelings for that end where something like that happens, and this is just purely unnecessary. Come on.
And of course, we are going to have 1 lap potentially of racing to determine this race. Lingvis is on pit road, Tainen is on pit road, but let's be honest, that's dropped them now outside the top 15. And you had 2 Club UK&I drivers in there as well. And this is a bad thing for Club UK&I. They scored 26th, 25th, 21st in this race right now, and they've also got another driver who's well down the field. The only driver they have in the top 10, of course, is Ellis Stevens. And for Club Finland, they've also lost a number of drivers now who are going to probably go down at least 1, probably more than 2 laps in this race. And it's kind of, again, as we said earlier on, John, this race isn't over until that checkered flag falls, and this has been a big momentum shift for Diaz because of the incidents there between some of the Finnish drivers.
It couldn't go any better for them at the moment. I mean, they're dominating at the front of the field, yet everyone else is doing the job for them at the back of the field and taking out all the other types of club and country cars. We're not seeing many DH guys involved in the incidents, and that is all credit to them for managing to stay out of trouble, and it's definitely showing in the result, and it will show in the championship standings after this one's over. But yeah, I think drivers are just beginning to get a bit tired. You know, some drivers have just completed a 50-minute road race and they're straight into 70 laps of mayhem, chaos and exhilarating action at a very difficult oval to drive in an overly powered car that is very difficult to keep under control. So, you know, it's not surprising that these guys are getting a bit tired and making some sloppy mistakes, but that was not a good incident there we just saw for that caution.
Marius, we'll keep an eye out to see how many laps there are to go in this race, but a 1-lap shootout is going to make things incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, and well, I'm sorry,
Not
but
fun, entertaining.
Exactly, I can't see this happening under green. I mean, under green. So as soon as we go into turn 1, I would be surprised if we're still under green. What we've seen so far, I mean, this one with Rodrigo Lellis, I'd usually put a whole lot of incidents towards racing incidents, but there's a limit. Come on, guys. I mean, this is just silly.
And we have, of course, got 3 laps left to go at the line. Your top 10, as it stands right now, it is the 50 car of Frank Schidlich leading the way. Marcus Jurek in 2nd, Christian Pieko in 3rd, Martin Colimbal in 4th, Thomas Kroll in 5th, Ellis Stevens 6th, Andres Quintana in 7th, Yari Lumakji in 8th, Augustin Oya in 9th, and then in 10th is Timo Verena. You have to say here, John, that it's not all over yet for Club Finland. Arguably, it's not all over yet for Club Brazil or Club UK&I. You do have to put Club Iberia out of the running, I think, mathematically now. But DH are the clear favourites coming into this evening's races.
Yeah, I mean, DH are the clear favourites, but I mean, you could say going into any race that someone's a clear favourite, and whoever is the favourite always seems to end up in the incident. So, you know, it's obviously going to come down to luck in the next couple of races if they can stay out of trouble, but they're definitely the guys who are in the driving seat at the moment. And if the drivers in the Group A races can stay out of trouble, no matter how fast or slow they are, if they can finish the race in decent positions, as UK proved in the road race and as these guys are proving in this one, you will pick up points. And we've said it all through the broadcast, if only drivers could hear us. All you need to do is finish. You just need to finish. And if you look at the drivers left in the lead lap, you know, there's only 15 drivers left, and quite a few of them will have big damage. So just by literally driving around, staying in the lead lap, staying out of trouble, you right now would be looking at a top 15 finish, no matter how fast or slow you are.
And we're keeping an eye out, of course, on the iRacing pace car to see whether or not we are going to get this 1 lap of green. Pace car is currently working itself through turn number 2. Don't forget, of course, you can keep in contact with us all day long. Go to Twitter, use the hashtag iRacing World Cup, and then use the hashtag iRacing and then your club as well. So for Club Brazil, hashtag iRacing Brazil. For Club Diat, it is hashtag iRacing Diat. Finland, hashtag iRacing Finland. Iberia, hashtag iRacing Iberia. For Club UK and I, it is hashtag iRacing UK I. And shall we see if the light's going to go off this time, Marius?
Doesn't look like it, and I've just had a good idea, Will. I think we would need an in-stream poll for the viewers to vote about if there's going to be another caution or not. I'd like to see the results of that.
Just post it on our YouTube feed. Do you think there's going to be another caution in the last 2.5 miles of the race?
Exactly. Just post it via Twitter, and we'll just give a shout out to whoever posted to us. I would be really interested. Lights off.
So there is going to be one more lap of this race.
Oh god.
Anything
I'm not seeing this. No, I don't even want to watch this. Anything.
I can't wait for this personally.
Anything which we're gonna say is just gonna end up in commentators' curse. If we say there's not gonna be a caution, well, obviously there's gonna be a caution. If we say, well, there might be a caution, guess what? There's gonna be a caution.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have been in this circumstance before. Again, in the iRacing.com Pocono 400, a last lap restart at this track. It is crazy, and you've got to remember the fact as well that these cars, they get the power down on worn tyres very differently, and anyone can make up a couple of positions, but you can also fall back a lot. And again, for some of the viewers, this is incredibly exciting. For club captains, drivers in the field, this is nerve-wracking as anything.
Yeah, and I will be shocked, to be quite honest, I will be shocked if every single car that's on the track is still on the track by the end of turn 1. I'd be amazed if there wasn't somebody in the wall, and if not, that would be a brilliant thing, and hopefully we can see an exciting racing right to the end. But the thing is, Frank Skitterick has clearly been the best driver, taking nothing away from Marcus Jurek. He is a very solid second and deserves second in this race. Frank Skitterick has been the man. He has led the most laps, he's been the fastest by far, and he's had to do it from second place quite a few times. And this is going to be, if he doesn't get a good restart here, he will be kicking himself about how this race has panned out, because if it panned out in any other way, with different amounts of safety car laps, he would have been driving away into the distance come the last lap, but he's got only one lap to hold on to this lead, and we've seen it before, it doesn't always work that way.
And we will get information on this funny thing is, we're going to get the Twitter poll out just about the time that we go back to Big Flag Racing, because there's a 45-second delay between what we say and what you guys see on the screen. However, here comes the pace car onto pit road. The green flag, the white flag will be out at exactly the same time. And here we go, the last lap of the second of our 4 events here today on GlacierTV. The cars are coming down into turn number 1. Will they all be able to make it through okay? The answer is going to be change for the lead. No, it won't. But Connable tags his own teammate there. Down in turn number 1. Here comes Christian Pietro. He's going to try and take second place away. Not quite close enough. It's still Diaz from Finland. Connable is on the charge. He's going to try and dive down to the inside of the Finnish driver into turn number 2. Not going to be close enough, but Ellis Stevens is trying to get himself up into the top 5 in that 11 car.
Oh, Jirek's at the wall again!
And Jirek touched, that's the second time he's touched that wall. And what it's done is allow Pieko up into P number 2. Jirek on the outside, who'll be in drag race at the start of finish line between these two drivers. But Skitterick is going to win the second of today's event. Christian Pieko comes in second, Jirek in third, Connable in fourth, and Ellis Stevens came home in the 5th position with Thomas Kroll in 6th, and then Austin Oya, Carlos Serbia will get his complete results up in a second because our timing's all gone a little bit wrong. But Skitterick gets it, but Pieko second, Ellis Stevens 5th.
I am completely shocked, outer-worldishly. How is it still? It's still green. I mean, forget the result, forget everything. They drove under green and finished the race, and we haven't seen another big wreck. Big props to everyone out there. Ellis Stevens making the position, and Thomas Kroll not being too aggressive, throwing away the entire race. 2 turns to go. So under green, they finish it with a spectacular showdown right to the line. Incredible.
So
it was very close to being a caution going into that last lap as well. Just to
That's
say,
for
going into turn 1, it was Girac, I believe, got very sideways going in, and it almost made contact with his teammate, as you mentioned.
Collibal, I believe that was.
yeah, and Collarbone was right up in the grey there. I don't think he was actually glad there was that much banking there on the racetrack. But, however, they all made it through. And I'm going to have to run for the race results after having to take a huge... Give me 1 second. There we are. Your final race results then from our second of today's event. Here, exclusively live on GlacierTV at the Pocono Raceway. And Frank Schitterich was able to take home first position there. After qualifying in first, he was able to come out on top. Christian Piecco was able to come home in the second position. Let's not forget, he started 8th and restarted 3rd on that final restart. Marcus Girac, he touched all but still came home in 3rd. Martin Collibal had a hairy moment but came home in the 4th position. Ellis Stevens comes home in 5th. Thomas Kroll in 6th. Yuri Lumanjiki in 7th position. Andres Quintana in 8th. Augustin Oya in 9th. And Carlos Serva rounds out your top 10. Of the cars on the lead lap, in 11th, Xavier Iborra. In 12th, Eli Rocha. And in 13th, Kimo Vriema. In 14th, scored 1 lap down was Rodrigo Leles. 15th, 1 lap down, the 42 car as Zlatan Sneznek. In 15th position, was Sneznek. 16th, Malia Augusto. 17th, Sebastian Lindqvist. 18th, Petri Tainen. 19th, Adam Zielinski. And then 20th was Rob Kuss when all was said and done. And of course, John, the important thing is that is going to have huge implications for the overall club standings.
And no one at the moment would be betting against Diach picking up their 4th World Cup, and the 4th in 5 years, of course, since the competition began. They've been so consistent in that race, and they've showed it. They've rebounded from their, you could say, disappointing first race, and the only team that were ahead of them was UK and Ireland, of course, having an absolute nightmare here at Pocono, and Diach are well on their way now to their 4th World Cup.
Well, we'll get confirmation of the points up in a couple of minutes. In fact, we've got it now, and look at that. Diach, a 40-point lead as it stands right now over Club Finland. 247 points for Diach, 207 points there for Club Finland. Club UK and I aren't out of it just yet. They got 191 points. They're in 3rd. Iberia in 4th, 159 points. Club Brazil in 5th. 122. These, again, they are not confirmed results. I believe they are now confirmed. But, Diach, 40 points advantage. You have to argue, John, anything can still happen in the next 2 races.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I say they'd be definitely favourites for the win. And that is, of course, not including the fact that anything can happen to any team at any time. You know, for all we know, we could see a wreck during the midfield which takes out 4 Diach drivers, and suddenly Finland are looking favourites again. So you cannot predict the future, and that's what's so exciting about racing and this World Cup format that iRacing run on GlacierTV are covering. It's a fantastic event, and it will be down to the wire. No matter how many points ahead a team are, as long as it's still mathematically possible, anything can happen, and usually does.
That is always the case in this type of racing. 1 second. And of course, we do it all over again in 1 hour's time with the second half of our coverage. We'll have the Group A finals, and it will be, first of all, the 4 GTs back at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Paz, Interlagos, for those of you who like to call it Interlagos. And it'll be 50 minutes worth of racing once again. The driver's going to have to make a pit stop. And then we'll have the final of our 4 events here. It will be at Pocono. But before we go any further, John, driver of this race.
Few could argue it's going to have to go with Frank Schitterich. Also, Christian Pico, he did finish in 2nd place, but the reason I give him a lot of credit is because he kind of came from nowhere. We didn't really notice him until towards the end, and he was our defining driver of the word consistency, and managing to make his way up through the grid quietly without causing too much of a stir. But Frank Schitterich has to have it. He dominated the race. He was fastest all the way throughout, and even when he kept on losing his leads to pace cars, he managed to get it back, and every single time he would pull away, so it would have been wrong for anybody else to have nicked the win from him.
Right, just before we go, we're going to have a quick chat to the driver who came home in the 3rd position, Marcus Girac. Now, Marcus, you qualified third, you finished third. However, you led a number of laps here today, restarted second, but that final run to the line just got a little bit loose there into turn number 1 and lost second position to Pieko.
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing, I have to say. Turn 1, I braked a little too late, came wide, but I managed to get a good exit into the direction tunnel turn. I was on second, and then I clipped the curb on the inside in the tunnel turn. And not to lose it, I had to back up a bit. This cost me the second place.
Cost you the second place, but of course, as the club DH and World Cup captain, you must be happy with the fact that you now have a 40-point lead going into the second half of today's proceedings. After a slightly shaky start with, of course, one of your drivers being out before turn 1 at the road race, you've got to be glad to be back on top.
Yes, I'm very glad. I'm very glad. I told all of the drivers that our first thing is to finish the race. It just isn't interesting whether we finish first or second or third, but to finish, because every DNF is a major disappointment for us and cost us many points. And all our drivers did it, and this brings us this big lead at the moment.
And of course, you look at the second half of today's proceedings. Craziness on the roadside. You've got to be careful of the starts, of course. But on the oval side, quite a lot of cautions as well. A lot of strategy coming into play. Looking forward to tonight's proceedings. Is there anything that you'll be telling your drivers to pay attention to or to think about when they go into battle?
Yeah, just be careful. That's all I told them before. Just be careful and give the place to the other driver in case it's going to be close. I'm sorry that I speak such bad English at the moment, but I'm so pumped up with adrenaline at the moment.
It's all right. You still speak better English than I do.
I don't think so.
So, we will talk to you, hopefully, a little bit later on. Who knows? We could be talking to you as the 2013 World Cup champion captain. But we'll talk to you a little bit later on. Marcus Jurek there, club captain for Club DH. We'll also have a quick chat with Joni Backroom. He is the club captain for Club Finland. Joni, it could have been a lot worse.
Could it?
It could have been a lot worse.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Well, of course, you're 40 points behind DH right now as far as the standings go. And it did seem to be that you were the victim of unfortunate circumstances in the oval race.
Us and UKNR. Luckily, DH had all the fast guys at the top 5, so they were pretty much wreck-free, but yeah.
And, I mean, you got yourself your P2, so you're not out of it just yet, 40 points back, but what will you be telling your guys heading into the evening sessions to think about when they get onto the racetrack?
Be sure to wreck all the DH, all the UKNR, all Iberia, and all Club Brazil guys out of the racetrack so you can actually win everyone.
There we are. Joni Backwin there for Club Finland. I'm sure he won't actually be telling them that, but they are 40 points back right now. And very quickly as well, Club UKNI World Cup captain Katia Scott. Again, it could have been worse.
Yeah, bit like the Finns. We did get caught up in other people's incidents, but yeah, we're not out of it. We've got good teams, so there's you don't know how this competition goes, do you? So we're still in with it. Still got a chance.
And of course, Ellis really kept you alive there with P5 in that race. Because a lot of the other team, again, victims of unfortunate circumstances, I shall call it.
Yeah, I mean, Ellis's drive was absolutely stunning. We had 2 drivers who were disqualified after instant counts as well, which didn't help. Both of which were hit by the drivers, causing their disqualification. So it was no way their fault. The second one was John Jenkins. That's why he retired. So we had a lot of bad luck in that race, but we just got to hope that we turn it around in the next one.
turn it around in the next one. Of course, we'll talk to you as well a little bit later on today. That, however, does wrap up our coverage of the first part of proceedings here on Glacier TV. And what we have to say after this is Diak started shaky, but now lead the way with 247 points. Finland, luck didn't go their way in the oval race, but still they sit second, 40 points behind Diak. And over the course of the event, 40 points is nothing. Club UK and I sit in third, 191 points. Iberia 159 and Club Brazil 122 points. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back on YouTube at 6 p.m. GMT, that's 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be bringing you coverage of the Group A races. First one at Interlagos in the 4GT for 50 minutes worth of racing. Then, a little bit later on at 8 p.m. GMT, the final of the 4 races back to Long Pond, Pennsylvania to the Tricky Triangle and the NASCAR Gen 6 machines. Myself, Will Vincent, from John Monroe, from Yoni Bachman, Yana Retikayan, and everyone else, and Myers Goldenbeck, we'll talk to you all in about an hour's time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.